Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Thursday, May 1st, the first month or the first day of the fifth month of the year. Where has the time gone? 2025 is moving very quickly, and we are here in the fifth month. Happy May to everybody. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is going to be I would say rather exciting market open because we had three companies yesterday report. Two of those companies, some of the biggest companies in the world, Microsoft and Meta, they crushed it. They crushed it. And then we had another one called Hoodie that a lot of us have been following since it was $7-8. And today in the pre-markets, it's up 5% because they also continued to crush it. Right now in the pre-markets, we are seeing an incredible beginning to May. And quite frankly, when we recap April, the S&P 500 was down less than 1%. So with everything that we went through in terms of the volatility, the tariffs, Liberation Day, Liquidation Day, yada, yada, it was a very volatile April. And I don't think that volatility is gone. And we got some crappy macro data this morning. It's not really ruining the pre-markets, but who knows at 9:30 when we open up what implications that macro data has. I think we still have a lot of volatility to go through this year, but if you're thinking of the earnings picture and what it means for equities, if equities are judged on their earnings growth, we had some pretty good earnings. We had some pretty good earnings, and that's why we are seeing some exciting pre-markets. Good morning, everybody. Let's get into it. June, good morning. Quarantine Quartet, what's up? My account's so close to being back to February highs. Thank goodness. Yeah, I would imagine. I didn't even mention Palantir, but Palantir at 120. I mean, I would imagine a lot of people getting back to those February highs, which is pretty incredible. Eric, I'm Beneficial. What's up? Nuno, Death, Nate, what's up? Harvey, Stags, Mike, Big Shot, Stewart. Good morning. Christopher, thank you, everybody, for being here. Jason, Sway, Toto, Bay Ray, what's up? Broccoli, Bob, Palantir with a rocket emoji. I think as long as we hold up from some of this macro data, we're going to see a lot more rocket emojis today. Sam, good morning. Evan Rhodes, Will Robson, Victor, Nate. Nate made a big decision yesterday. Nate's a friend of the channel. He's been watching since we had 40 people join these streams back in 2022. He made a big decision yesterday, and we'll talk about it, but he sold a stock and he bought a different stock. So we'll be talking about what he did today. RK, good morning. Poppy Jammin'. That's a hell of a name. Poppy Jammin'. Thank you for being here. Luna, Luthen, O. Rodriguez. Martin says the voice is back. It's kind of there, right? It's not perfect yet. I took a bunch of, what do you call those things? Those things you put in your mouth? Halls? Cough drops? Yeah, I took a bunch of those last night, and so it's been helping. I'm talking a lot this week, but it has been worth it. Troy, Hard Deep, Alex, RW, Vaughn, Matthias. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Good morning. All right, let's get into it. So first of all, for those that didn't join the Robinhood live stream yesterday, we are officially retiring the Chinese company, and we are moving on to where we should be. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a new era for the market open. Robinhood Legend is officially live on the channel. Now, a lot of you have been asking for this for a long time, saying, hey, when are you going to use Legend? I have been in contact with the Robinhood team, and I told Vlad to his face a couple months ago, back in December at the Investor Day, dude, I really want to use Legend, but you don't have this thing on the right-hand side of the screen. You see how it says S&P 500, 560.33. You can get a summary. You can see the volatility of it, the 52-week high, 52-week low, the fundamentals, dividend, AUM, market cap, PE, etc. All this stuff that Webull had that made it easy for you guys to know what stock I was on as a streamer. As a trader, this platform is great, but as a streamer, it's really hard for you guys to see the chart or for you to see what stock I'm even looking at. And I tested this on NVIDIA earnings 2 quarters ago. We had like 20,000 people in the stream and everyone was like, what stock are we looking at? You know, so I just realized it just wasn't optimized yet for streaming. And I told Vlad and the team, hey, can you fix this? And 2 weeks ago, they got me access to this beta version. Some of you guys might have access to this. Some of you guys might not. And now it's a lot more optimized for streaming. They also did some adjustments on the top and the bottom. They took away some stuff that wasn't necessary when it comes to streaming. And so we are in motion. So very excited for this. Vlad even mentioned on the call yesterday that they've made updates for live streamers for Legend. So again, a tech company, they live and die through their innovation. They found my concerns. They recognized that this is something they have to solve. They took their time and resources and actually innovated, brought this to life, and now we're able to use Robinhood every single day. So this is what we got going on in the pre-markets. Robinhood stock, 51.48. That's up 4.83%. Microsoft, I think, really was the story of yesterday. 9%. Microsoft is a $3 trillion company, It does not move 9%. Microsoft was flat year over year if you looked at it yesterday. So Microsoft really doesn't get this type of a move. It's not like a Tesla or Nvidia that can go up 6, 7, 8% in a day. Really, Microsoft is not that volatile. So they had to put up good numbers for the street to give them a 34-point bump right now in the pre-markets. And I think they will sustain it based on the Azure growth and the cloud growth. And we'll talk more about that, but it seems very legit. Then you got Meta. That's up 7%. Meta right here trying to get back to 600. The number one thing for Meta, and again, we'll go deeper into it, but they are raising. I don't like dried grapes, but Meta is raising their CapEx from 60 to 65 billion to 64 to 72 billion. I mean, it's just incredible, dude. It is just incredible. The fact that they're raising their CapEx guidance to such an extent means that good old Nvidia is going to be up 4.26% in the pre-markets. And that is also very exciting to see for everyone who's been following Nvidia and the semiconductor story. This is why the market's pumping. This is why the S&P 500 is at 560. It is 20 points away, which is about, I think, 3% from that 70-day, or not 70-day, 200-day moving average at around that 575 level. And it's up 1% in the pre-markets. Again, S&P got to 4,800 on April 7th. We are now at 560. So if you bought the dip, you stayed through with the volatility, even with all the craziness that we've seen, Biden's stock market has done very well over the past 24 hours. It's actually up 4% since we got official notice by our current president that this is not his stock market. So pretty damn incredible. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of momentum, and earnings is really what allowed this to happen. Now, we do have some crappy macro data that we'll talk about in a little bit that is not the best, and we're going to see how that affects earnings. But right now in the pre-markets, we are seeing a ton of momentum. So, by the way, the raisin joke, I thought about that literally on the spot. Okay. I know you guys are saying cringe right here, but I hope some people, even if you don't put it in the chat, just mentally, subconsciously, you give me some credit for that. Cause I swear on my life, I thought of that in the moment, and I'm actually really proud of it. I really am. I genuinely am. Okay. Robinhood. Let's start with Robinhood. Then we'll get into Microsoft and Meta. I got the honor of asking a question on the call yesterday, along with Tanner and Roy. This was my question, and this is what they had to say. And I actually think the answer to this question is the story about why Robinhood is doing as well as they're doing.
Hey, Vlad. Hey, Jason. Congrats again on a great quarter. My question here is on the promotion you guys ran for the 2% match in March. Jason, I know you said you've loved the unit economics on these matches. Can you give us a little bit of insight on the types of customers you brought over in March, and if you think the 2% match is sustainable to continue bringing over more of the wealthier clients? Thanks, guys.
You bet. So first of all, incredible engagement by customers, record level of net deposits. The promotions were not the majority of that. In fact, they were, in Q1, less than 15%. Customers love it. We love it.
Let me just pause it right there. He says in Q1, incentives were less than 15% of the $18 billion. They brought over $18 billion of net deposits, and less than 15% were because of the 2% match they were giving to people. That means 85% were people like you and I willingly putting our money into Robinhood. I'm sorry, the volume is not the best. That's more on Robinhood's call. Their audio wasn't the loudest, so that's why the volume is not the best. But that is insane. This means that the flywheel of people using Robinhood and then wanting to continue using Robinhood, bringing over accounts and depositing more money is happening, which is why we are seeing record net deposits and record engagement with their users.
And you're right, Ahmed. I love the economics of it. The payback periods are really attractive, consistently below, across all of our promotions, below the clawback periods on that. In terms of the kinds of customers that we're getting large customers. The average customer transfer per user was $90,000 overall. So we're getting large customers. And then what's really interesting is for taxable accounts, because we had taxable and non-taxable promotions. For taxable accounts, it was double that. So over $180,000 average ACAT transfer in.
So, I think that's really the story right there. And that's why it's very, very exciting. The average transfer Robinhood's bringing in is over $180,000. This is not your mom and pop random retail investors getting into Robinhood. These are serious, sophisticated investors. I personally know people that have brought over tens of millions of dollars to this platform. and they're using it. And guess what? They're taking out margin. They're paying interest on that. They're putting more money in. Robinhood's making a cash sweep spread on their money. They're trading. Robinhood's making money off the crypto volumes, the equity volumes, the option volumes. And that is why this is working so well. All of it comes back to the user experience. What I've argued for the past 2 years is the moat of Robinhood. UI, UX, people said that's not a moat. They were wrong. They were wrong. It's a moat. Apparently it's a moat if you build something so good that people don't want to leave. Who would have known? And so the idea that people would not use Robinhood, or that they would leave, or that they wouldn't engage with the platform has severely been dismantled in terms of that thesis. And it's purely because of Robinhood's innovation to keep putting out new features and get people excited. 927 million in revenue, up 50% year over year. EPS 114% year over year. Every dollar that Robinhood brings in, 36 cents of that dollar is net income. So they have a 36% net income margin. Absolutely incredible. Total AUC, 221 billion. They're going to get to $1 trillion, I think, in the next couple of years. Net deposits, 18 billion, 7 billion alone in March, 3.2 million gold subscribers. They also bought back 7.2 million shares. I mean, come on, bro. 7.2 million shares. You know, most companies that buy back their stock, they're not really growing. They added another $500 million for buybacks, which means they now have 1.5 billion allocated for buybacks, about 800 million that they can use for the next couple of years. And they bought back 7.2 million shares while growing 50% year over year. So this is a growth stock that is actually growing. They're returning value to their shareholders. They're acquiring other companies like TradePMR, which got them another 40 billion in assets, and they're pushing out new products. As a result, I think that Vlad is on a mission. I think that Vlad is on a mission, and as a result of this mission, that is what's leading Robinhood to get the momentum that we are seeing right now. Amit, do you agree they will 10x in 10 years? Yeah, I mean, I think it's 50 billion. I think 500 billion is on the way for Hood. I think this will be one of the biggest financial institutions in the world. JP Morgan, Bank of America, they're in that $500-600 billion range. It'll take time. It's not going to be easy. It'll be volatile. Robinhood's still very cyclical. There's tons of bear cases associated with it, but the long-term bull case on will this company be a generational investment? Yes. It's really just that simple. And I'm going to make a post later on X today about all the other nuances that people missed from the call, but a couple things. Number one, April's off to a great start. Equities and options were all-time highs in April in terms of volumes. Crypto was 8 billion. That was a lot lower, but equities and options, all-time highs in one of the most volatile months. Number two, 6.5 billion in deposits inside of April. That's their second highest, largest deposit month in a single month. So in the face of the volatility, people still put more money into Robinhood, which is proving that when things become volatile, people don't take their money out of Robinhood and leave, which is kind of what we saw back in August of 2024 with the whole carry yen trade. People continue to want to invest in the platform and put more money in and potentially buy the dip, which we've seen retail's been doing, which has been very exciting as well for Hood. And then finally, they said they have 150,000 international customers. So the international customer base in Europe starting to grow dramatically, and they're going to be entering Singapore towards the end of the year. I think this is obvious. I think this is getting pretty obvious. And, stock's up 5%. Now, granted, I think the stock should be up a lot more. It's not up that much because I still think we're in a volatile market. We got a lot of headlines. We got some China stuff today. We got some bad macro data. So in the face of all these headlines, the fact that it's up 5% is very good. I'm probably going to de-risk out of some of my options. I've just decided I don't want to be in options for the next 2 years on a lot of my stocks. I'd rather just own the stock. If I want some premium, I'll sell covered calls against them. But the sort of big 3-4x win on options, I don't know. The next 2 years, it's kind of hard to be super confident that money is going to be safe. And I think I'd rather preserve my capital, if anything. So, I mean, look, I at this point, I think 51 isn't necessarily cheap if you think that the growth is going to slow down in Q2, which it might because crypto volumes are slowing down, etc. But if you're buying this for the next 10 years, I think this 51 becomes 500. And I think the product innovation by Robinhood is so intense that if you just want the stock and want something that you can sleep well at night holding in the financial space, and really not the financial space, the technology space, that's what I think we have for Robinhood. I'm not selling my Grab options. Grab, I kind of decided that's going to be the only one I have an options play on because Grab, I think, is so asymmetric. Grab is still down year to date, or it's like up 1% now. Robinhood is up at this point almost 30% year to date. So with stocks that are up a lot, I'd rather de-risk. With stocks that have basically gotten no love from the market, I'm okay with being in options. I did not sell my SoFi options. Also, I'm not selling those because that's asymmetric again. The thing about I don't need more Robinhood options. I have enough stock, right? So I just don't need that added risk. With SoFi, it's a $3,500 option bet that could turn into 50,000 if it goes to 20. So there's no need to get out of it. But yeah, with Hood, I need to de-risk at this point. Palantir, I don't have any options. I've never had options on Palantir. Palantir has always just been stock. So that's just gonna stay as stock. But yeah, in general, look, it's been an incredible quarter for Robinhood. I think if you bought stock, I bought some shares at 49 last week. It's done very well. If you do buy options, I don't hate it. My personal risk tolerance, I still have options that are expiring in 2026. So I kind of just don't want to keep getting deeper into the leverage. But overall, the quarter was what I want to see that was good. And Tanner, Roy, and I were actually wrong. We thought they would miss estimates on revenue. We thought they would beat on EPS. We thought they would miss on revenue. They beat on revenue. So we have to go back to our calculation methodology on how they sort of deal with the contra revenue, because that's one of these features in terms of how they take away certain revenue based on paying for assets they bring over. We kind of messed up that calculation, but we thought they would bring in 900. They brought in 927. They beat the analyst estimates by about 10 million. And as a result, just an incredible quarter for Robinhood as well. Doug says, I've got the wrong kind of options on Foundry. Yeah, the covered calls. What are all the options you're holding on? So on Robinhood, remember, I have 95 $100 call debit spreads. And as bullish as I am on Hood, I just don't want to take the risk of the next year and a half. It needs to get to 95 for me to make a profit on those options, right? So theoretically, I'd rather just sell them while I have a ton of time on my side. And I don't know how much they'll be up today. I'll tell you guys when I sell them. But I'd just rather not be stuck in them right now. So the only options plays that are left are SoFi, TLT, which is a very small option play as well. Some Google deep in the money calls that have been wrecked because Google has been down, and then Grab. And that's pretty much it. Cool. So that's what we got on Robinhood. Let's go to Meta. Meta again crushes it. And why did Meta crush it? Well, they did one thing that I think the market was really looking for. They said, we are raising CapEx. And the reason they're raising CapEx is because AI is not slowing down. I mean, this to me, I didn't expect them to raise CapEx the way that they were going to raise CapEx, but they did. And as a result of that, it's been pretty damn incredible to see them getting this momentum. Meta raises CapEx spend guidance to 64 to 72 billion, up from 60 to 65 billion. The AI revolution, in my opinion, is not slowing down at all. Meta beat earnings by 23%. I mean, I just didn't expect them to have this crazy of a quarter, but it's Zucks. And I think anyone who's been betting against Zucks has been proven wrong for the past couple of years right now. The only time you were right was in 2022, but he pivoted and he completely changed. 643 versus 521, beat by 23% on EPS, and then 42.3 versus 41.3 on revenue. They issued guidance for Q2. I think the guidance was basically in line. They raised CapEx guidance. EPS is up 37% year over year. Revenue is up 16% year over year. The market absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. So look, I know a lot of you guys own Meta. I asked you guys yesterday in the chat, how many of you guys own Meta? And a ton of you own Meta. I don't see a reason to sell Meta. I mean, this thing was 740 before, it dropped to 480, back to 570. We're probably going to have some more volatility that could take it up and down, and I think that's for the whole market, not just Meta. But the trend is that billions of people, 3.86 billion a day, somehow they're finding new people. It's growing 6% year over year to keep using this platform, are growing. And as a result, Meta continues to monetize all those users. And they're just beginning when it comes to VR, AR, Ray-Ban glasses, and WhatsApp monetization. And so I think there's a long way to go. And then you get Llama as a call option. You get this, this open source LLM as a legit call option that has really no revenue for the business, but could be something that magnificent in the future in terms of it becoming the leading open source LLM. That is a very strong way to think of the Meta thesis. And then you got Microsoft. They beat by 7% on EPS, 346 versus 322, and then 70.06 billion versus 68.4 billion. This is the first quarter in 2 quarters where Microsoft actually beat and raised on Azure revenues. They are growing 35% year over year when it comes to cloud. They missed the last 2 quarters, and that's what got people upset the last couple quarters of, hey, wait a second. If Microsoft is missing on cloud, does that mean that AI is slowing down, right? Because the biggest part of their business is AI growth in the context of AI workloads on Azure. And no, it's not slowing down at all. And because it's not slowing down at all, we are seeing a lot of momentum. Here's the updated stats right here on Microsoft. It's been a boring stock for the past year, but it has been incredible in terms of their growth this quarter, which is why they're up 9% right here. So cloud overall grew 22%. Azure grows 35%. That was 31 last quarter. That's faster than Google right now. I mean, which means Amazon and AWS, this is why I think the entire market is rallying right now. We know AWS is going to crush it if Azure is crushing it, which means we know NVIDIA is probably going to crush it, because the reason NVIDIA has all this demand is because Microsoft, Google, and Amazon continue to spend on GPUs because their AI workloads need more data centers. And as a result, That's where we're seeing these growth rates. Servers were up 24%, 365 was up 15%, 365 consumer 12%, Dynamics 18%, even LinkedIn is growing 8%. I try to go on LinkedIn and then I cry when I'm scrolling through the post because it's just like I can't scroll through it. It's just bad content. But like LinkedIn, people are using every day. Xbox up 9%, search is up 23%, and then Windows is up 3%. 70 billion in revenue for Microsoft. What do you say, dude? What do you say? Just an incredible quarter. I mean, it's hard to fathom the scope and scale of these companies. Realistically, Mag 7 has been disrespected all year. And the reason Mag 7 has been disrespected all year is because of this thesis that people were saying that, you know, we need to rotate the capital out of the biggest companies in the world, go to things that are potentially more undervalued. And the funny thing is that resulted in a 20 to 25, I think at one point it was 30% sell-off on all the Mag 7. And still, most of these companies are trading at cheaper valuations than a Clorox, than a Philip Morris, than a Costco. It is insanity. Like, it is absolute insanity that these are the companies that are going to be buying back all their stock, that are going to be raising their dividends, that are going to be having the free cash flow necessary to keep innovating and push for the future, and the market selling them off. NVIDIA, still cheap at 113.82, given the demand that we're seeing from the hyperscalers, but it's up 5% because the market is starting to realize, all right, it might be cyclical, but at least for the next, I would say, 24 to 36 months, that cyclicality is not going to be under threat, given AI demand is as strong as it is right now. So, incredible earnings last night. Incredible earnings last night from Meta, Microsoft, and Hood. Now let's talk about Tesla. So late last night, we had some Tesla news, and I saw it when the news broke. I didn't report on it or tweet on it because I just genuinely did not believe it. It felt insane to even think that it was happening. But if you were keeping up with it last night, the rumor was that Elon Musk is going to be leaving Tesla as CEO, and the board of directors opened a search for a CEO to succeed Elon Musk. This was per the Wall Street Journal. So, yeah, I thought this was BS. I really thought this was BS. It did not make any sense. I'm not saying that the Wall Street Journal is always wrong, but in the like they get, you know, they report very quickly on a ton of other macro things. But when it comes to Tesla, they have a very weird history with Elon Musk. I remember a year and a half ago on this show, they broke an article about Elon's like drug life and his sex life. And it was like a 15-minute article going in depth about like Elon's personal life. And at that moment I realized, oh, the Wall Street Journal really is just using Elon for clicks. Like they don't have really interesting news to talk about. So they're doing whatever they can to get people to pay attention to them, because legacy media we're seeing is starting to die. And it's just not as relevant as much as we thought it was in the past. And they're using Elon as their subject to find a way to get people's attention. Tesla responded a couple hours after this news broke. Earlier today, there was a media report erroneously claiming that the Tesla board had contacted recruitment firms to initiate a CEO search of the company. This is absolutely false, and this was communicated to the media before the report was published. The CEO of Tesla's Elon Musk, and the board is highly confident in his ability to continue executing on this exciting growth plan ahead. Dude, this is all I need. I don't need to dive deeper into the story. People are like, oh, well, maybe there's some nuance. No, there's no freaking nuance. If Tesla's saying Elon's not leaving, what is there to talk about? Like why? What nuance do we need to search for if Tesla, the public company that is publicly audited and all this stuff, and the SEC is on their ass all the time, if they are putting out a statement saying Elon's not leaving, then what nuance is there to this article that we need to look into to try to figure out if there is any truth to it? Is Elon leaving or is he not leaving? He's not leaving. Okay, cool. Wall Street Journal lied. It's that simple. It's really that simple. Elon says it is an extremely bad breach of ethics that the Wall Street Journal would publish a deliberately false article and fail to include an unequivocal denial beforehand by the Tesla board of directors. He's accusing the Wall Street Journal of putting this out after they reached out to the BOD for confirmation, and the Tesla board was like, no, this is false. And they still put it out. And the reason they put it out is because I think they have an agenda, and they want to use Elon in whatever way they can to get clicks. I mean, it's just that simple. Like I'm just not that interested in if there's any truth to this article. If Tesla themselves is saying this is absolutely false, that's all I need. All right. And if it's not false and Elon leaves in 2 months, then forget the class action lawsuits for misleading and fraud. I mean, like the stock's going to 100, probably lower than that. right? Because I think if Elon were to leave, Tesla's done. Like, I don't think anyone can push them over the finish line when it comes to the seemingly impossible challenges of FSD and robotics other than Elon. And Elon knows that, right? Like, what would he do if he leaves? Like, Tesla is his life. And Elon is someone who wants all the credit and the attention, and he loves the fact that he is the guy, right? I know he's at other businesses, but at the end of the day, I don't think he wants his legacy to be, I left Tesla before the biggest revolutions of our lifetime, of forget our lifetime, of the planet's lifetime when it comes to artificial general intelligence. It just doesn't make any sense. Just doesn't make any sense. So, I'm actually proud of myself yesterday from restraining and posting and reporting on this. Because, in the content business, you got to get news out as soon as possible. But for me, I was reading it and I'm like, this is just, there's no way it's real. There's just no way. And I waited 2 hours and then we got the confirmation by Tesla saying, yeah, this is bullshit. And as a result, Tesla did fall. It fell to 269. So whoever sold at 269, GG's. I mean, it could get back to 269 just from the macro. But if you sold on that news, I don't know, dude. That was one of the more obvious, hey, this is probably not true type of pieces of news. And you got Tesla down about 1% right here, but it's not due to the Wall Street Journal. So there you go. That's what we got on Tesla. Now let's look at some of the macro data. The macro data is not that good this morning, unfortunately, and that might potentially ruin a little bit of the pre-market momentum that we have. So it's a lot of green candles because of Meta, Microsoft, and Hood. We had some other companies report yesterday that did very well. Eli Lilly this morning did great, so we'll go through their earnings. But unfortunately, U.S. jobless claims were 241,000, 18,000 more than expected. It was 225 expected. Now it is 241. And then April 19th week was raised to 223,000. Continuing claims are now 1.91 million when it comes to jobless claims. Now, the reason this is uniquely not the best right here is because these are the highest layoffs. We also got US-based employer layoff data, which is different from initial jobless claims, of 105,000. Remember last time in March, we got 275,000 jobs that were lost. Now in April, we had 105,000 jobs that were lost. So that's down 62%, but it marked the highest total for the month since April 2020, when we had 671,000 layoffs that were announced in 1 month. So far in 2025, employers have announced 602,000 layoffs, the most for the year, or the most for this time of the year, 4 months into the year since 2020. And a lot of it is due to Doge-related cost cutting. So, I mean, we are starting to see more layoffs. Again, I would think the Fed is looking at this data. They have a mandate. The mandate is low inflation and low unemployment. And I think unemployment probably is going to go up from maybe 4.2 to 4.3, 4.4. A lot of this is Doge related, but nonetheless, those are people that don't have jobs. We need a stimulatory environment when we have less jobs, and we need to make sure we can have a soft landing if this accelerates, which from all the indications we're looking at, we're probably going to see an acceleration, especially if the tariffs continue to withhold themselves or impose themselves on employers, because they're going to have to put the cost on consumer and have some layoffs. That doesn't mean it's going to be a catastrophic amount of layoffs, but the data is pretty obvious that we're going to get more layoffs, which means the Fed needs to cut. So I don't know if that macro data, along with consumer confidence, we saw JOLTS, obviously, that's also consistent. We had 300,000 jobs, less than expected, 7.2 versus 7.5 million, is enough to ruin the momentum we're seeing because of earnings. Granted, all these earnings are pre-tariffs. All of it is Q1, Q2. We're really going to see the impact of the tariffs. But Meta didn't say the tariffs mattered. Microsoft didn't say the tariffs mattered. Robinhood didn't say that. I mean, like, the big companies that reported yesterday said, we're good. We're going to keep spending. We're going to keep doing what we do. We're going to keep investing. We're going to raise our guidance, and we're going to keep going forward. We do have some updates on the China deal and different trade partners from some of the White House officials this morning. They are saying the things we all want to hear. Granted, they've been saying this for the past couple of weeks, that we are getting close to a deal. But if we actually do get close to that deal, hopefully within a month or two, there will be some damage in Q2, but I think hopefully by Q3, Q4, we recover. And that will enable us to continue to have a bull market. Nick Knack says, it's my birthday. Admit I turned 32. Nick Knack, happy birthday to you. Thank you for being here. I'll join you at 32 in about 5 years. So welcome to the dirty 30s. And yeah, enjoy your birthday. I'm so happy you're spending your birthday with me here on the market open. Was McDonald's pre-market? Yes. McDonald's was yesterday, I think. They had a good earnings. McDonald's was not bad. We had a couple other companies in earnings, and so we'll pull them up right here. Tesla recovering a little bit now. It's down about 0.71%. S&P 500 right here is up about 1% right here, 560 currently in the in the pre-markets. Remster says, I turned 30 this month. Yeah, I mean, I'll be there in 3 years. I turned 28 in October, so I'm getting there. I will be there. I've always felt it's kind of weird. People have this stigma of growing older. It's like, we're all going to get older, right? Like, it is what it is. You know, you either embrace it or you sulk about it. And it's like, with age, hopefully comes A, more wisdom, B, more experience, C, more money, right? As you get older, you have, the ability to invest, gain more capital, all that stuff. So got to just embrace it. And as we get older, these companies get older and we get to follow their journey and hopefully take part in the ability to invest and grow our capital with these companies as they grow older. Robinhood right here, 5138, Nvidia 113.88, S&P 500 at 560 currently right now. I'm going to do a poll right here in the chat, and it's a simple question for today. Do you think the green lasts? Do you think the green lasts today? AKA, do you think we keep the momentum for the day, or do you think people sell into the strength? I'll be selling my hood options, but that's just me trying to leverage. I told you guys last week that was the plan. If hood pumped, I was going to sell some options. I don't care if hood goes to 60 or 65. Like, I don't want to be in that risk. I just rather own the stock and make premium off aggressive covered calls if that's how I want to play it. But I've kind of just decided, from an options perspective, there's still just way too much volatility to deal with it. And I already have, a ton of leverage in other places. So it's just not worth it to continue to stay leveraged. One thing that on Robinhood that did decrease in April was margin. So we are seeing certain metrics like crypto and margin, which they make a good chunk of capital on, that came down in April. And if May is relaxed, if June is relaxed, those are metrics that are going to decrease their revenues. Also, one thing to remember about Robinhood as well, which is why I don't want the options, I want the stock, is that rates are going to get cut. Remember, high rates are actually good for Robinhood. They make a ton of net interest income. So the CFO yesterday said, we're going to take a $50 million hit off every 25 basis points that the Fed cuts. If we're going to get 25 basis points of cuts, you got to chop off about 50 million in revenue. Now, the argument is that transaction volumes will be able to offset that. That's fair. But if there's a lot of volatility, then maybe transaction volumes aren't that strong enough to necessarily offset the hit in net interest income. So it's not a bad thing for Hood, but it's one of those things that might not allow it to accelerate as aggressively as it did when it was $20, right? It's just a different landscape right now in the macro end. Obviously, the stock has pumped aggressively from those levels as well. So that is what we got. Also, why is Hood running a Biddy coin? I mean, you got momentum right here. If this thing gets to 100K again, 96,508. If we actually see 100K again, it would be pretty damn incredible to see that end up happening. All right, couple quotes from Kevin Hassett, who is one of the White House economic advisors. Number one, he says Trump doesn't support a tax increase on the wealthy. Number two, he says we have hard offers from more than 20 countries. Number three, he says we are hopeful for progress with China on a trade. And number four, he says we are very close to making progress with China. I was listening to a couple people talk yesterday about China and their argument. By the way, Chinese state media, which take it with a grain of salt, but they reported yesterday that the administration is reaching out to them to put an end to the trade war and officially start a deal. If they are right, if Chinese state media is correct about this, and I don't know whether to believe them or not. What I do know is that every other day we are hearing from Trump and the administration that we're getting close with China, we're talking with China, yada yada, but we're not getting anything substantial. So my personal takeaway is, they don't really have any negotiations with China because we would know something by now. They have a lot of posturing in the media to try to seem like they are having the upper hand with China, when in reality they don't, and we know they don't. But also China is going to have a very bad next couple months if they don't have the U.S. consumer. So it's not like this is all the leverage is with China. This is like, hey, both sides need each other. However, China's strategy is pretty much to do nothing, right? They've done nothing. They've just waited back and said, we're going to wait until you guys come to us and decide that you want to end this trade war. Chinese state media reporting that the United States is starting to reach out. I don't care if it's true or not. I just hope that there is an end to this war soon in the context of tariffs and the reciprocal nature of them, 140%, 125%, and we get a deal done inevitably. I don't even care if the deal is that good. At this point, let's just get a deal done. Because I don't know if we're going to get massive concessions. I don't think the U.S. has all the leverage in the world to get those concessions. We are going to start seeing shipping ports not have a ton of containers come through. We're already seeing in the data down about 44% in California shipment ports. The question is, are the shipments that we are not getting from China now actually vital products that we need, or is it stupid stuff from Temu and Shein? And if it ends up being stuff we actually need, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty for China either, because they need our consumer. But it's not going to be pretty for us because we need their products. And even if we have an inventory excess of supply, and that's really why we had negative GDP growth, because we imported so much back in Q4. Eventually, we're going to need more inventory. So I just hope a deal gets done. I hope the U.S. gives up something, China gives up something, everyone feels happy about what they got, and then Trump can brag about it all he wants. But if we get a deal done, I think we have a shot to go back to all-time highs pretty easily, because earnings should be good. Granted, we got to avoid a recession, and that depends on J-Powell to be able to cut. If we get a deal done, we can walk back the tariffs. That gives J-Powell an easier way to cut. But ultimately, that's what I think we're going to need to see to happen in order to get more momentum. Jensen Huang was with Trump yesterday at the White House. We'll listen to a little bit of what he said, but here's what he said about the labor market and AI as he was speaking at the Hill and Valley Forum.
Some jobs will be lost. Every job will be changed. Okay, so let's just break it down. It's always easy to go to one extreme from another, but I always find it helpful when you break the problem down, reason about it from its first principles. And again, in this framework that I just described, at the lowest layer, as you know, and Jacob, you're deeply integrated into venture investment, and you know what's going on in AI. And you know, at the foundational layer, it's because of AI that San Francisco is back. Okay, anybody who lives in San Francisco, you'll know what I'm talking about. Just about everybody evacuated San Francisco. Now it's thriving again. It's all because of AI. And AI creates a new type of job. And the fundamental reason is because it's software development, but done in a different way. We've changed every layer of the technology as a result of AI. What used to be human coded software running on CPUs are now machine learning generated software running on GPUs. And so every single layer, the tooling of it, the compilers of it, the methodology of it, the way you collect data, curate data, use AI to guardrails, use AI to teach, use AI to keep the AI safe. All of that technology is being invented right now, and it creates tons of jobs. At the next layer, this is where the giant opportunity is. Remember, I just said that we're going to create a new type of factory, and this factory has electricity come in and it generates tokens out. A 1 gigawatt factory, let me just put it, 1 gigawatt factory, and we're in the horizon building something like 7, 8, 10 gigawatts of AI factories. 1 gigawatt factory is $60 billion. $60 billion for 1 gigawatt. 100 megawatt factories is pretty commodity now, it's pretty commonplace. And so you just divide that by 10. But $60 billion is the annual, one factory is the annual revenues of Boeing. And to build it, you have to finance it, creates a lot of jobs. You have to build out the site, the shell, creates a bunch of jobs, construction. You got carpenters, you got steel workers, you got masons, you got to build out that factory. $60 billion factory. This thing is gigantic. You have to have, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, plumbers, and then after that, all the low voltage stuff, all the IT and the networking. After that, operations. That entire cycle is about 3 years. A whole bunch of new trade jobs have to be created. These trade jobs, in the last computer industry, the last computing platform shift, the number one critical path for most companies' growth is software engineers. This next layer, AI factories, the number one is going to be trades, the trade craft. And I think this is terrific. Our country needs to acknowledge that trade craft is respectable work, and it's critical work, and it's necessary to build our country. And so we want to encourage trade craft, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, steel workers, the whole span of it. We're going to need a whole bunch.
All right. So Jensen right there, making it pretty obvious. AI is not going anywhere. AI is not going anywhere. And then yesterday, we also had Mr. Jensen with Trump.
1964, the year after my birth. Well, after all this time, we've reinvented computers again. This is what a processor looks like. It's on the right there. People say it's a GPU. That's one GPU unit, and it's 70 pounds, 60,000 parts, 10,000 watts. In order to manufacture it requires probably a couple of hundred companies in the supply chain. It is so heavy that it requires robotics to do. It's so precise. And just to test a supercomputer requires a supercomputer. And we're going to build NVIDIA's technology, the next generation of that, all here in the United States. Without
It's pretty cool. He said we're going to build all that technology in the United States. That's what Trump wanted to hear. I think it was very important that Jensen and Trump were on stage together because we need Trump to understand how important NVIDIA is, and we need Jensen to be able to play politics and stroke Trump's ego, quite frankly, and make sure Trump knows that Jensen cares much about the United States. And, Jensen is an American patriot. NVIDIA is an American company. But in this administration, you've got to be able to make sure that the administration, which cares deeply about America first, believes you're an America first company. And so I was very happy as an NVIDIA shareholder to see Jensen and Trump together. And now it's just a question of the market recognizing that NVIDIA should not be trading at a cheaper valuation than Costco. And hopefully, we're going to see that happen. But that is what we had yesterday, and that's some of the momentum that we are seeing right now. PayPal right here down a little bit in the pre-markets, down about 0.38%. You got GameStop basically flat. AMC, that's up a little bit. Snowflake's up 5%. They didn't even have earnings. That means SaaS companies are just getting some love right here, probably because of the kind of overall momentum of the market. Adobe right here is up about 0.73. Palantir, we got 3 minutes until the market opens. Let's talk a little bit about Palantir. We are going to be listening to Alex Karp at the end of the market open. We didn't get to listen to him. I saw some clips yesterday. I thought it was a pretty exceptional performance. There was a protester. I thought he very gracefully dealt with that protester. So we'll analyze all of that at the end of the market open. But I've lost words for Palantir. I don't know what to say, dude. I mean, this is before earnings, which means it could be pumping and then dumping on earnings, or it could be pumping and going even higher if they crush earnings. We're basically back to all-time highs. We went to 65. Now we're back to 120. So, I mean, if you wanted to sell at 120 and missed your opportunity, you got a chance again. If you want to sell covered calls, the premiums are jacked up. And if you want to just hold on for the ride and continue to see the company execute and just see how it plays out, you can also do that. I mean, for longs that have been in this name for a long time, it is just exceptional. It is quite frankly, guys, we were covering this damn thing at $6 and it's 120 in less than 3 years. It's just unexplainable. The valuation, I get it. I will be the first person to tell you worth more than Salesforce doing the numbers that they're doing does not make sense. However, I think with Palantir, kind of just accepted they're a unicorn. And the growth has to keep up to be able to keep up this multiple. And the momentum of AI, the narrative, the storytelling, all that stuff has to be there. But when Meta raises guidance, when Microsoft crushes on Azure, when NVIDIA, we all know, is gaining more demand, even if they're losing their China revenues, it's showing to the market, hey, AI is real. AI is not going anywhere. And what is going to be the software infrastructure play for AI that is going to get the benefit of all these LLMs? It's going to be Palantir, especially in the enterprise where they don't have to deal with trying to get $20 a month from consumers or try to show you some ads when you search for something. No, they're getting $30, $40 million a year from the biggest companies in the world because of the integrated suite of software products in regards to Foundry and AIP. And so I think the market has just bought into that narrative. Yes, the valuation is expensive, but at the end of the day, that's how the market's thinking of it. And that's why we're seeing this momentum on Palantir. So very, very exciting stuff. Let's see how this day turns out. Let me check the poll real quick. You guys said 73% of you believe the green will last today. We got some crappy macro data, but the earnings seem strong enough. And now we just got to see how this momentum can continue. All right, here we go. Thursday, May 1st. Happy May. Thank you, everybody, for being here and spending your time on the market open. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The S&P 500 opens up 1% on the day, 560 on the S&P 500. NVIDIA, 113. That's up 3.72%. Robinhood, $50.90. That's at 3.6% right here on Robinhood. Not bad at all on Hoodie. $50.80, up 3.5% right there. You've got let's see, Snowflake right here, that's up about 5.2%. SoFi, 1285, that's up 2.72%. Affirm is up 4.12%. Arc Innovation, that's up 2.5%. Let's go to the Mag 7. Mag 7 are green. Microsoft, 10%. My goodness. Congratulations to Microsoft. Absolutely incredible earnings. They deserve it. They deserve it. Meta, also, they deserve it. 7% up on the day, 7.29%. By the way, these stocks aren't even at all-time highs or at the highs of 2025 because they pumped so much in February. So realistically, they're kind of recovering with way better earnings and way cheaper valuations. And that's why I think this pump makes a lot of sense. Google right here, even Google on a day like today is getting a little bit of love. Even Google on a day like today is up 1%. Nvidia right here, 113.22, that's up 3.8%. Tesla, 282, that's up about 0.15. Amazon is up 3%. I think AWS and Apple are, well, AWS is going to crush it today. Hopefully Apple crushes it as well. Apple right here down about 1%. Maybe market's a little scared going into their earnings, but AWS should be strong. 190 right here on Apple. Let's look at the semis. Most of them are green. AMD is up 1%. Nvidia is up 4%. Micron's up 2%. Lam Research is up 0.09. Dell's up 1%. SMCI took a nasty 15% beating the other day. They are still down 1%. Intel's up just a little bit. TSM is up about 4%. Qualcomm up 4%. Marvell's up 2%. And then ARM right here is up 2.85. Broadcom as well up 2.49% on the day. Crypto, Bitcoin doing great. 96,452 on Bitcoin. You got a lot of momentum right there. Coinbase is up 2%. Riot's up 4%. Marathon's up 4%. All your crypto plays are up. And then Hoodie, I believe, how's Hood doing? We are at 49.86. All right, 1.59%. Again, my thesis on why Hood really didn't pump a lot yesterday is because the macro is still uncertain. Robinhood's very high beta to the macro, so I can understand the market being a little bit scared right here, selling into strength. But nonetheless, Robinhood just up about 2.4% currently right now as we get into the market open. Amid, didn't someone buy 900,000 of Microsoft in the money calls right before earnings? Yes, they did do that. That was pretty aggressive. It looks like they felt it was going to be a pretty strong quarter, and they were right. They were absolutely right. So whoever took that Microsoft position, I mean, they've done very, very well. Palantir right here, 119.68. That's up 1%. Nvidia still up 4.3. Robinhood 50.17, holding on to that 50 level. Tesla now goes green, 284. So there you go. That's up about 0.84%. Amazon right here, 2.9. SoFi up a little bit, 1.56. And then where is Microsoft? Meta right here, still doing their thing. And then Microsoft holding on to 10%. Microsoft not giving away that 10%. Where's Grab? Let's try Grab. Let's see. I got to add it to this watch list right here. Grab, are we past 5? Grab, 487. 487. All right. So Grab not really getting a ton of love right here, but the market's still doing okay. Again, for Robinhood, I know everyone's going to keep asking, why is it not going to the moon? I really do think we're in an uncertain macro, and Robinhood makes money off trading volumes, and trading volumes could slow down. It's already slowing down for crypto. So long term, I think it's going to be one of the most important financial institutions on the planet. But short term, after this quarter, it might not pump all the way back to all-time highs. And that's just the nature of their business. Palantir trying to get back to 120, 119.94. Looks like it wants to get there. I mean, market's expecting a strong earnings. And if we really do get the momentum that we want to see, it seems like we might have a shot to end up getting there. 119.84 right here currently on Palantir. So Nate, I said Nate, who's a friend of the channel, he's been in the chat for a couple of years now. He had a big decision yesterday. He got a lot of people pissed off on Twitter, but I guess that's what happens when you do what he did. He sold his SoFi for Robinhood. And he says right here in the chat, my Robinhood position is already outperforming my SoFi position, which is hilarious. But look, dude, I can't blame you. I talked about this a lot last night. I do think SoFi is undervalued. I'm not selling my SoFi, but after hearing that earnings call, after Robinhood allowing retail investors to participate, after seeing their momentum, their growth, $18 billion in a quarter. I think SoFi had like $2.5 billion in deposits compared to Robinhood's $18 billion. I mean, what are we talking about here? Like realistically, what are we talking about here? So I understand why people are making the transition. And I just think Robinhood cares about their community, and just SoFi doesn't. And maybe that's not a thesis for people to sell, but at least for a lot of people that have been sitting on dead money, it's not exciting to see Robinhood be the cool kid, have a party, engage with investors, and then SoFi just not follow that up. So we might see some of that transitioning. I still think SoFi right here is undervalued. Meta right here at 584, that's up 6.5%. Nvidia holding on to about 4%, and then Microsoft really not letting 10% go. Really not letting 10% go. Is Robinhood red? There you go. Robinhood goes red. Yeah, it's not surprising. It's really not that surprising. I mean, it's one of those things where we're still in an uncertain macro. We're still in an uncertain macro right here. So, if you're thinking about this on a short-term basis, you're going to be upset, especially if you have a swing trade on this. If you actually looked at the earnings and you want to go long, like truly long, then, that's where you kind of reconcile some of that. But it makes sense. Why should Robinhood go up 10% if Q2 is going to be more volatile and they might end up not having the best earnings, right? Now, the reason I think Microsoft and Meta are pumping is because they are juicy SaaS revenue businesses that are raising guidance because they can understand how incredible their quality of revenues are and how sticky they are. Robinhood is contingent on the market. And if the trade war continues for the next 2 months and people just don't feel like trading, or they want to sell, they want to get out of stocks, they want to just lay back, be in cash, rates come down, Robinhood loses net interest income. Yeah, it makes sense why Robinhood could fall. So not really that surprising to me. It is what it is. And the stock went from 8 to 50. So it's not just going to keep going up forever without having the earnings to justify it. And the earnings did justify it today, but the market is forward looking. And ironically, we did pump. We pumped from 30 to 50 already based on the April lows. And that was where the real money was to be made when it came from the lows. But no one wants to buy it at 30 because everyone's afraid. Now people want to buy it at 47, and then you want to get it to 55. But if it doesn't go to 55, you're ignoring that it went from 30 to 47, right? Like, this is the stuff we just can't ignore when it comes to some of these growth stocks that are obviously very, very high beta to the market. NVIDIA right here, 112.77, that's up 3.5%. Then Palantir right here, 119.90, kind of holding on to this 119 level. Is Microsoft dumping? Where is Microsoft? Microsoft right here. No, it's not dumping. It's all right. It's not up 10%. It's up 9.1%. But I wouldn't say that's dumping. I mean, look at this weekly chart, dude. Microsoft, my goodness, dude. Incredible. 370 to 430. Microsoft now year to date. Are we green finally year to date? We are up 3% year to date on Microsoft. That's how much that pump was needed just to go green for the year. And then over the past year, it's only up 9%. I mean, this has not been a stock that's been working for people that have been trying to see the AI CapEx trade play out in their favor. There's been a lot of other ways to play AI other than Microsoft. So this is, I think, a well-needed day for shareholders that have been waiting for momentum here. And that's what we're getting from Microsoft. Qualcomm's down 8%. Really? I didn't really look at their earnings. We're going to have Jose join us in a little bit. He'll talk a bit about Qualcomm and Microsoft and Meta as well. I think down 8%. I mean, let me check. I believe they missed on one of the metrics, and that's what got them. We'll talk about the other earnings. By the way, McDonald's missed on revenue by 3%. EPS, they were in line. McDonald's stock right here is basically flat. Okay, so McDonald's is flat. In terms of Qualcomm, and then we'll look at Roblox and Eli Lilly, CVS, and Moderna. They all had earnings today. Qualcomm, no, they beat on the top and bottom. 1%, 2%. I guess the guidance kind of sucked to be down 8% right here. I guess the guidance kind of sucked. Eli Lilly, what about them? I think they beat on top and bottom as well. No, or maybe they did, but they're down 7%. Again, I didn't get a chance to go through all their earnings, but maybe that's a guidance question. Eli Lilly, they missed EPS by 3%, beat revenue by basically 0.01%. Okay, nothing crazy. I mean, at their scale, missing on EPS is not the best, but it's a small miss. Had to be something with guidance. They're coming out with that Ozempic pill that you could eat. So I think that is the catalyst for them. And they were up, I think, 20% 2 weeks ago off that catalyst. So they might be giving back some of those gains. Robinhood right here, down 3.8% after those earnings. Look, if you want me to be upset about this, I'll buy more Hood. This is one of those things where if one of my favorite stocks falls after an incredible earnings, that doesn't really piss me off. That I want to buy more. So to me, I mean, look, it is what it is. And if you want to take a stab at it, want to sell puts on it, I think it's a juicy opportunity, down 5% after those earnings, especially if it gets into the low 40s. But this is why playing earnings is always tough. Sometimes you just don't get the pump. And it is what it is. If you sold covered calls, you did well. And I've been saying this for the past couple months, but I think 2025 is a covered call market. I still think it's a bull market, but that doesn't mean it's a bull market that'll rip your face off. It's a bull market. We'll be green at the end of the year, but your covered call premiums might outweigh some of the gains on the actual stocks simply because you've been able to play the volatility up or down. Palantir right here, 118. Everything getting a bit of a red candle, as you can see right here. So we are starting to see a bit more of the red. Where's the S&P? S&P right here is still up 1%, even with some of these growth stocks getting red candles. Roblox crushed it on their earnings. They are up about 2.6%. They were up 5% at one point. Meta still holding on to 6%. Palantir still holding on, but it looks like it could go red in a little bit. Nvidia right here, 112. Robinhood, 46.96. Tesla, 284. Amazon also losing a little bit of its pre-market momentum. And then Microsoft right here, still up 9.5% currently right now. Yeah, it's Biden's fault. we can blame Biden. We can blame Biden. I think we get ISM data as well, like pretty soon, right? At 10 a.m. So that might be something the market's looking for in the next 20 minutes. And we're going to see kind of how that affects the market. Yesterday's data was not the best in regards to PCE and the GDP data, and the jobless claims today were not good either. I mean, they were a lot more than expected. Let me check the probabilities on rate cuts. Again, if you're just joining, we had 105,000 layoffs and 240,000 initial jobless claims, both way more than expected. Rate probabilities for the May 7th meeting are now 4%. The Fed is not going to cut rates in May, but in June, it's at 69.5%. We're probably going to get that cut in June. I mean, I don't think J-Powell's going to do 50 bips, but if we keep getting these layoff news announcements, Intel, UPS, then we probably should get some cuts. Amid, are you still holding Snap? Yes. Where's Snapchat? I'm still holding on to that. Snapchat, 801. All right, I'm in at 870. So that one again. Earnings, I thought that would be a good trade on earnings. It didn't work out. Sometimes you play earnings, it works, like Hims, even though that wasn't earnings, but that was just a random occurrence because of their deal with Novo. But sometimes earnings work. Like the guy who bought $900,000 of in the money call options on Microsoft, it worked. But what if it didn't? Right? What if it did? Like this earnings it's always a gamble. It's just how confident. I mean, I did sell a ton of hood options yesterday as well. I still have a bunch, but I sold a bunch yesterday as well. And that was a good move, apparently, if we're down 4%, because I got out at a better price. So it's just the name of the game in terms of how these things play out. But again, I want to remind people, this stock was $8, right? It's now in the 50s. So every time we want to ask it to pump further, it's going to be harder. The market's not going to easily say, all right, we're going to keep giving you a premium. This is why it's different from other companies that have good earnings, but then they tank on earnings because their stocks are still stuck at the same levels that they were at for the past couple of years. Robinhood has 5x, 6x from the lows. I mean, so when you think of it from that perspective, you got to just be happy that you can continue to get even a little bit more of some momentum. No, I didn't have puts. I had call debit spreads that I sold yesterday. I didn't have puts on Hood. I had actual spreads, 55.70 for January 2027 that I sold yesterday. So I think I sold them at like 48.50, 49. And so that's what I took from in the context of taking profits. Copium tasting good. Well, you gotta cope after those earnings, right? After those earnings are down 3%, you gotta cope. I don't know, dude. It's just not that emotional for me because I've been covering them for a long time. It's like same thing with Palantir dumps on earnings. Like it's not about coping. It's just about if you've been in so early and you know that the stock is really expensive and you know that the market might not want to give it a bigger premium in an uncertain macro. It's like, okay. Sometimes the market genuinely is stupid and it's wrong. Other times you can be reasonable enough to understand why the market is acting the way it is. And I think with Hood, I don't think the market's being stupid here. I think the market's just saying, hey, it's still volatile. Robinhood, very high beta. We're going to have to wait and see what happens in Q2. Now on Google, the market's stupid. On Google, the market's just, I think the market's narrative around them not being, that's just stupid to me. But, so far I've been wrong about Google. The market's been right. And I guess we got to see when they recognize Google as an AI play. What else do we have? Any earnings today? Yes, Apple and Amazon today after the bell. Those are going to be big ones. Apple and Amazon. That will be important. Justin, thank you for the $10 super chat. Microsoft passes Apple in market cap, 3.22 trillion. Wow. 3.22 trillion, huh? That's pretty damn incredible. Microsoft right here. Microsoft, I mean, that is not giving up their pump. They are holding on, and they are holding on rather aggressively right here. 9.8%. They're not stopping. And I think part of the reason the market's not letting it stop is because the market knows that Azure and AI is not going anywhere. Especially in the context of cloud, dude. I mean, all these workloads, all these startups raising money, that comes from cloud. And so I think That's what the market's seeing as well. We have some breaking news. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce writes formal letter to the White House to lift tariffs on small business importers in order to prevent a recession. This is one of the reasons Robinhood's not going up right now. Because when you got headlines like this, where the Chamber of Commerce is telling the U.S. to get rid of some of their tariffs because small businesses could go out of business, you can see the volatility creeping up. They write, we are deeply concerned that even if it only takes weeks or months to reach agreements, which is in the best case scenario, especially with China, many small businesses will suffer irreparable harm. Small businesses do not have the margin or capital reserves like a Meta to sustain the increased tariffs, nor do they have the ability to quickly modify supply chains like an Apple. Yeah, there you go. It's not good. It's not good for small businesses, and I think the White House is going to have to acknowledge that eventually. All right, I think we have PMI right here. Let me check PMI. Global PMI, what did we come in at? Okay, it's a little bit of a miss, but it's not too bad. 45.3 versus 46. Global came in at 45.3 versus 46. We have global manufacturing that we're waiting for right now. That should be there in a second. Let's see. Oh, that was Canada. Canada's was 45.3 versus 46. The United States, that one's still loading right there. Oh, you guys have it in the chat? Okay, 50.2 versus 50.7. 50.2 versus 50.7. It's above 50, which is good. That means we're expanding versus contracting. Below 50, we're contracting. We get manufacturing PMI at 10 a.m., but it is a slight miss right there. Trading economics being a little bit slow right there. I'll get the actual numbers, but that's what we have on global PMI. Oh, by the way, Trump is speaking at 11 a.m. So, yeah. Again, the dude goes live more than me. Global April PMI, again, unchanged at 50.2. So, I don't think the markets are going to be affecting that much, or going to get affected that much by that currently right now. And then we'll get services at 10 a.m. All right, cool. Isn't that crazy? We'll see whatever Trump has to say. I don't even know what he's talking about at 11 a.m. Yesterday was the Invest with America event. Maybe today it's something different, but I don't know. Whatever he has to say, we'll have to react to. Robinhood right here, down about 3%, 47.55 on the day. Meta, 5.58%. Microsoft right here, 9.8%. Grab goes red. Grab down 1%. Where's Palantir? Palantir still holding on, up 1%, 119.70. And then we got Googs actually getting a little bit of love, 162. Meta up about 5%. Oh, the Ukraine minerals deal. So that also is looking like it's been signed. I think they're going to do a ceremony for it in the next week or two. But that's also bullish. And there is now a Ukraine reconstruction fund that is being started by the United States. If you guys remember, Palantir was also part of the reconstruction efforts back in 2023 or the end of 2023. They signed a deal with the Ministry of Digital Transformation to be able to help reconstruct. BlackRock also has a reconstruction fund in Ukraine. So it looks like there's going to be a lot more economic development in terms of rebuilding the country. And the United States will be able to benefit from a lot of rare earth minerals as a result of providing them a lot of the weaponry. Palantir right here, 119.85, NVIDIA 113.52. So that overall should be good for the broader markets. Amazon is today, correct. Amazon after the bell. Amazon after the bell. And then Apple as well. Yeah, Palantir also has a big demining contract with Ukraine. The Palantir has a lot of stuff in Ukraine. I mean, I don't know if they got paid in 2022 for the initial software, but I think the software was strong enough to then get a lot of these other ancillary contracts across the country. And as a result, that probably also got them into NATO. That NATO deal we got 2 weeks ago, I mean, that probably was a direct result of Palantir being on the front lines with Ukraine. So that, if anything, was the ability for Palantir to show how vital and important their software is. Microsoft right here, 433, still up about 9.6% on the day. Max 7s, all of them are green except Apple. Apple's up about 0.5%. Cryptos are pretty much all green except Hoodie. Bitcoin right here, 96. That's another thing. Hood taking a beating today, 4%, when Bitcoin's up like this. That's really the market saying, hey, we're afraid of Q2. And we're afraid of the volatility that Q2 can come with that would mess up Hood's earnings. Which, again, I don't think it's unreasonable. But if they keep crushing Q2, then I think that concern would not be the biggest concern. And then all the semis right here, pretty much green except ASML and Qualcomm that are now that are now red on the day. Oracle and the cruise lines, let's take a look at that. So let's go to Oracle right here. Oracle 148.27. Wow, Oracle's up 5%. I guess Microsoft pumping Oracle right here. Data center spend definitely helps Oracle, so that makes sense. Carnival Cruise, that is up 1.46%. Royal Caribbean had a great earnings the other day. That's up about 2.35%. So that makes sense as well. Also, the 10-year, dude, that damn 10-year is coming down. It is coming down. Look at this thing, dude. 4.147. If we get below 4.5% or 4%, 3.5 is, I think, that magic number. But if we get below that, I think that would be very exciting. So we are seeing the bond market start to stabilize. Why is Lilly down 8%? I actually don't know. They missed on EPS by 3%. I don't think that's enough to tank them as much as they're getting tanked, but it would have to do something with guidance. We'll try to find out in a bit. But Eli Lilly getting hit here right now. Yeah, MicroStrategy has earnings today as well. I forgot. I did forget. MicroStrategy earnings don't matter though, right? Because they just show how much their Bitcoin yield is. Dude, we sat through the call last time. It was the worst experience ever. They were selling merch at the beginning of the call. The call is pointless to me. I mean, like, all that matters is how much Bitcoin do they have and what's Bitcoin's price. That's it. So I don't really think their earnings makes a difference. But if Bitcoin pumps before the earnings, it'll make a difference. Palantir right here, 119.98. Let me see if there's any major. No, I don't think there's major resistance at 120. There you go. Just hit 120. There's no realistic wall right there. Yeah, just crack through. Just crack through. There's another 10,000 shares at 120, but looks like it can crack through. Palantir, 120. Where's CEP? So this is that new Bitcoin company. Oh my goodness, dude. 24%. I don't know why that's up 24%, but it is what it is. 24%, dude. Holy crap, dude. My goodness. That's pretty incredible. Where's Reddit right now? Reddit is 120.69. That's up 3.5%. That's probably all in a meta. Robinhood's still down on the day. Tesla right here, 285. CEP, Cantor Equity Partners. I don't know how it's pumping this much, but if you believe in their Bitcoin per share versus their earnings per share methodology, then I guess that's what's helping more momentum. Chris says send me the StreamYard. All right, Chris, sending it to you. We'll get Chris on the show, get his thoughts on some of these earnings as well. Amit, doesn't Palantir PE ratio scares you? It scares the crap out of me. Look, I think obviously Palantir is expensive. Scare is not really the word because, I mean, like, if it tanks, I kind of just don't care, right? I didn't buy Palantir at 120. I don't need it to go to 125 for me to make money. And I'm not planning on selling. So the scared part is if you want to get out of it because you think it's some bubble that's going to go back all the way to $30. Like, then, yeah, you should be scared because obviously the valuation is aggressive. But if you think the bottom is around 60, 70, and you would be happy to buy more at that range, and you kind of really don't care just about the valuation because you think it's a growing company and they can grow into the valuation, and good companies have always been expensive and overvalued, et cetera, then it is what it is. But if you bought it at 90 and that's your entry price to go long and you're afraid that it's going up too quick and the PE is getting out of control, at 90, it was pretty expensive, just like it's at 120. So I think if you're long, you're long. And if you want to swing trade it, you take your profits. And if you're buying it just to sell calls on it or whatever, then that's fine. But scare is not really the word here. Just like when Hood was 65, that wasn't scary either, At the end of the day, if I'm not planning to sell everything and try to get back into a cheaper price and time it, then you kind of just continue to hold on. SMCI, again, they gave that really crappy guidance the other day, and that's what hurt them. They're still down 32. As you can see right here, they fell pretty aggressively, basically from 38 to 32, about 15%. That affected NVIDIA, but again, I think that SMCI guidance is more reflective of A, there's other companies in the space like Dell and HP that are taking their lunch, or B, China getting rid of the H20 chip. Affected SMCI that was creating the servers for that H20 chip. I don't know if that is confirmed that SMCI was providing the servers for NVIDIA in China, but if it was, that could explain the massive decrease in guidance by about $1 billion. Chris Patel, good morning.
Sup, dude? Is there any way you can change that color to like not be throw up?
So I asked them about this. I was on a call with them. I said, guys, I don't know why your colors are pink and neon green. Can we just get regular red and green? And they said they're working on it. So
Okay,
Oh,
good. Yeah, that would look way better. I don't know why the aesthetic choice just looked weird. I don't know.
I agree. Microsoft Meta. What do you think? Are we in a bull market again?
No, it just means that AI, the story on AI is not dead. It's still doing really well. I started using the new Chat GPT. I like it, but like I said, there's still a lot of errors. So like yesterday after earnings came out for Norwegian, I was trying to do like recalculate what I expected the stock price to be going forward based on some of the guidance that they have. And it kept giving me the wrong EBITDA. And I was like, you're searching for it, you find it, you can easily do a projection. Like, so basically all I said was, okay, give me the EBITDA guidance for this year, which it did correctly. And then I said, well, next year they're going to do, according to their guidance, they're going to do about 10 billion in rev. So apply the same EBITDA margin, and it gave me like the wrong thing. So it basically applied an EBITDA margin to 2026 that was completely incorrect. I don't know why. And then it's funny because when you correct it and you tell it like, no, you're wrong, it's like, ooh, oh yeah, you're right. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks for confirming that but the thing is like, you can't do that because I'm basing certain figures on that. And so it's a little, like I said, it's a great tool, but you have to know what you're doing. So it's like don't become too reliant on AI because you're still going to need that human hand to make sure that you're correcting your numbers,
How do you feel about the implications of those earnings? And then we'll talk about macro, but in general, I mean, Microsoft up 9%. You would imagine they deserve this type of a pump.
I mean, they're scaling, they're being a little bit better on their CapEx, right? So I think Meta is saying, oh, we're going to spend more on CapEx, but Microsoft, they're like, we're going to moderate our CapEx. The question is Google going to moderate next year or not? Like, that's the real, I mean, that's what my question is, because I'm a Google guy. So I'm looking at the valuation on Google and it's,
wow, look, that popped up right there. Cool.
Your orders just got filled. Yeah.
So okay, that's really cool. So I just sold 7 calls. I wanted to do that live to see if it would pop up there. I sold 7 calls of NVIDIA 117 May 9th. So there you go. So now if I do a trade right here, you guys can just see it right there on the screen. So, okay, cool. So NVIDIA right there, 117 May 9th, sold some covered calls, 1329, 7 out of 7 contracts sold, got 191 in premium on that.
Yeah. I got to play around with Legend. I think
it's cool. I've been playing around with it a lot more. And it's just like even the little effects and stuff that it does, like I need to play on the options chain on Legend because I just did that through my phone and it popped up there. But I think it is getting more exciting here.
I think I'm gonna start looking at Hood seriously and maybe buy some shares. Well, actually, I'm actually thinking about doing some spreads. Believe it or not, I know you're kind of like withdrawing from them a little bit.
But on what?
And
spreads on what? On Hood?
On Hood. But the challenge that I have with it is that so much of the revenue comes from crypto, and crypto is like a fair with a friend. When crypto runs, they get a lot of good revenue from that. But when it doesn't, it kind of like sits, it tanks. And the challenge is, how do you model out a target in a regular market like that? The other thing is their stock trading platform, as far as I can tell, was kind of flat. Like they didn't really make a lot of money from that. So
yeah,
you'd be pretty much banking on banking to be a big part of their future growth driver. I mean, I think it's a great company. I think it's gonna do really well over the long term. It's just being analytical about it. It's like, how do I price this thing for that fluctuation?
Okay, so let's talk about macro. So you believe Microsoft Meta had good earnings. They crushed it. They deserve the momentum. Macro, we got some nasty job data today, and we got some nasty job data yesterday around job cuts and then initial jobless claims. I would imagine you think this is just indications that the Fed should cut.
Yeah, I think at this point the Fed has enough reason to cut, and I think to some degree they probably would have cut if Trump hadn't opened his mouth, to be honest with you. Because at this point now the Fed has got 2 levers. They're like, should we kind of like signal to the market that we are independent of the Trump administration's moves, or are we are we beholden to them? And believe it or not, I think there's one more domino that needs to fall, and that's something that we'll see tomorrow. And you know what that is?
Friday. No.
Unemployment's out tomorrow.
Oh, real quick, we just got ISM data. 46.5 versus 44 expected. ISM April 48.7 versus 49. Okay, so those aren't horrible. It's actually a little bit better than expected.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think the key is tomorrow is going to be a much bigger like indicator whether we're going to get a cut in May or not. Even though it's leaning towards probably an additional month of a pause, I think they should technically cut. Like I think there's enough data, but once again, the Fed is going to do what the Fed has to do. And if not May, then we're definitely going to see June. And I think June is going to be a good start to the rate cutting cycle. I think more optimism is actually coming from the ability to get trade deals done in the next 30 days.
Right.
Because if you're able to get the trade deals done and you're starting to like let these tariffs off, the chief argument that the Fed has in regards to, hey, the reason why we're not cutting is because we could see higher inflation from the tariffs. You remove the tariff thing from the equation, the Fed has no hurdles to cutting anymore.
Okay, so then do you think the China deal is close then, if you're saying it's all about deals? Or
I'd say we're getting to that place where there's real pain that's kind of being exerted by the general populace, and that's kind of making its way to the White House. You saw that letter from the Chamber of Commerce today regarding that. You're starting to see social media posts about small businesses and the crazy tax bills that they're getting from the tariffs.
Yep.
All of those things will add to the equation and basically make that determination for the Fed, and also not the Fed, sorry, to the federal government, to the Trump administration, to say, what, let's start to work on some deals.
Okay. So, my next question. Well, what were you going to say? And then I'll ask you.
Well, there's two things I think we should be paying more attention to if we want to see inflation coming down. One is something I posted on Twitter, which is oil. Oil prices have gone sub 60, and now they're getting to the point where it's really bad. Like you're going to actually start to see production cuts in the U.S. And if you start to see production cuts in the U.S., new wells are not going to be coming out because break evens around 50. 55, depending on which shale play you're looking at, you're actually a little bit higher. So if you see that this stays at a prolonged what's the word? Like downward move on oil prices, then you're going to see unemployment rise in the oil patch. The other thing is, I don't know if you saw this data on OPEC. OPEC is actually raising production. So that's going to be another thing that keeps
good or
oil
bad?
Prices. Well, if OPEC raises oil production, I mean, there's more oil coming onto the market, right? So that means that prices, supply and demand, right? If you have more supply, then demand goes down, which means oil prices come down, or at least they stay flat. So if you look at year-over-year comparisons in oil last year was about $75, $80 a barrel. Right now, it's between 55 and 60. And 65, whatever, it fluctuates. But the point is, it's lower than what it was last year.
So you think the oil story and the demand destruction story is a rate cut story more than anything?
Yeah, that's one thing. Another thing is shelter. Shelter is rolling over hard. If you look at the data that's coming out right now, the amount of inventory, especially in the South, it's absolutely exploding. Price cuts are happening. If you look at the home builders, they were actually down significantly from last year. They're literally offering like 18-20% incentives to get into some of these homes right now because there's so much saturation in new homes in certain regions. So like the two main ones, and now you're starting to see it kind of broaden out. The two main ones are like Florida and Texas. They're starting to see massive amounts of price cutting, and you're seeing price cuts in the springtime. Okay, that's really big because usually you see price cutting happen towards the summertime because that's when like all the inventory that hasn't been sold is kind of left over. So a lot of people are putting their homes on the market and they're actually willing to take some price cuts. So yeah. People calling for inflation are smoking crack. I don't know what that means.
No, basically saying people thinking that inflation is going to keep going up is.
Oh yeah, of course. I don't. Yeah, we're especially if you see an economic slowdown and growth slowdown, it's telling you like, hey, inflation is going to come down, and we might actually in 2026 be fighting deflation. You know, so we'll see what happens. I mean, and not to mention, then you have the Doge cuts, and it may not
which created all the job losses that we saw today, 105,000,
right.
or some of the job losses.
Right. And the spending on the government side, if you look at that GDP data, it showed that government spending downward move is there also. You know, so a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is showing that, you know, inflation is likely coming down. And I think a few more months of hard data is going to force the Fed's hand in moving things down. So I think we'll get my estimation has always been 4 cuts by the end of 2025, another 4 by the end of 2026, gets us to a neutral rate about, you know, between 2.75 to like 3, which is fine by me, you know, and that lowers mortgage rates down to like 5%, which should theoretically unlock a good portion of the housing market as well. Because there's been a lock-in effect, because a lot of people, you know, they're not going to trade in their 7% to buy, a 3% mortgage to buy a 7% mortgage house. But there's more people that could actually do, like, let's say, give up that 3% for, let's say, a 5% mortgage. More people would be willing to do it, in which case now you're kind of unthawing the housing market. And once again, that just means that more inventory will come into the market, and that should help stabilize prices, at least in shelter, down. And if that happens, then you're going to see, you know, like basically inflation is going to get anchored lower.
So the S&P is trading at almost 22 times. Fear and greed is now neutral. We're not in fear anymore. Do you think it's kind of getting frothy?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, we're still in this zone of AI being a big driver of productivity. So, you know, there's companies that US companies are still doing well. Yeah, there's pockets of overvaluation, Palantir. But you know, I mean, come on, just you can't help but like 600 PE. Seriously? Like, this thing is worth more than Salesforce generates what, like 3 billion in rev a year, growing at 20%. It's not even like growing 100% a year. It's growing at like 20%. The challenge
how do you explain why it's trading here? Do you like how would you
a lot of positive headlines, like every other day you're seeing positive headline after positive headline. So the thing is, like, it's almost like this reinforcing mechanism in human psychology. Like, oh, they got a NATO contract. Oh, they're part of Ukraine reconstruction. Oh, they're doing this. Oh, they're doing that. So it's like every day you're seeing good positive news keep coming out for this company. So some people are just like, well, you know what, if I see this positive news, that doesn't mean that I want to, you know, not be looking at the valuation too much.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they are still growing. I know the growth doesn't justify the PE or anything, but they are growing. And I think if they slap on 40% growth, this is the only concern I have is they don't pump before earnings. This time they pumped. And so going into earnings, if the growth is there, but it's subpar, do we tank? Or if the growth is like, I don't know, 40%, 45%, does this thing go to 150? So it's one of those things where it's like,
even if it grew at 40%, man, I mean, just look at
I know, even if it's at 40%, but the narrative of a 40% SaaS company in AI, that, you know, there's no one's doing that.
Yeah. The other thing is, a lot of their earnings are heavily juiced up by their cash balance that they have on the balance sheet. That's basically providing them a net interest income. The key is, over time, if we start to see rate cuts, you know, that net interest income is going to go down, which means that you're actually going to need real cash flows to start coming in. And, you know, with the amount of share-based comp that they're doing, and then the dilution effect, it's up there. And I mean, yeah, they're buying back some shares too, which in my opinion is probably not the way to go at this rate, because you're buying super expensive stock back. But I don't know.
All right, we're gonna buy the dip on Hood. Let's see if it pops up on Legend. I'm buying 50 shares at 46.79. Doing it on my phone.
Here's a question: do you ever look at like some technicals when you buy like this? Like, do you look at RSI?
It's down 5% on a great earnings. I'll buy the dip. Dude, my thing is, I'm able to, so part of my hood position is not just long. It's stuff I can sell calls on. So there's part of my hood position I leave, then other part of my hood position I sell calls on. So if it gets called away, whatever. If it doesn't, I take the premium and I buy more.
Right. But I'm saying like, here's the thing. What's the best time to sell a call option on hood?
When it's green.
No, well, yes, technically, but usually before there's a huge volatility event, right? So like, let's say right now you sold covered calls on hood for like $75 right before earnings. That would make sense because volatility is so high, you're going to get this huge premium. So when vol crush happens post earnings, you're going to maximize that.
I didn't do that on 75. I did it on 54 though. So I sold 10 contracts at 54. Those are up 80% today. Let me show that.
Yeah.
But you don't always have those volatility events, right? You have them 4 times a year, but on green days in general, that's when, it's the best thing.
I mean, there's also like news that comes around too, that basically, they have like an investor day or they have X, Y, and Z. And that usually is also another time where things go up and down. And then you have like macro level data that's supposed to come out, which also can impact, volatility. But that's why, this is where I would say you just have to learn the ins and outs of this thing. I'm not as much of a technical trader as, let's say, someone like what's his face?
Literally
Jason?
vibe investing. It's
Jason.
vibe investing, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, it's down 5%. It's a heavy conviction. Average is in the 20s, and I sell calls against some of my positions. So to me, it's just, you buy the dip.
No, do your thing, man. I'm not, like I said, I'm not judging you. I'm just asking, the other thing is I'm glad that you said something yesterday. I was actually watching. By the way, yesterday, bro, I had like the worst fucking night.
Yeah, you didn't join the show, bro. Everyone wants. So I got to ask you about the whole Trump Biden thing now. But like, you didn't. You had.
Nah, I had a work issue where basically, so I work overnight and I'm on call, and literally at 7 a.m, like I get a phone call that like images from our hospitals weren't crossing over into our PAC system, and so I had to dig down deep, understand what was going on, and it was some really messed up things where our local cache was completely completely full, which technically should never happen. And then we have this application that's supposed to automatically archive things to keep local cache, with enough free space. And for some reason it didn't happen, in which case then we had to get like a whole bunch of people. Like literally we were, I think, maybe an hour away from going into diversion. Like that's how bad it got,
Yeah.
And I mean, the entire time I was just chilling because like the network engineers do all their part, but I have to like babysit the whole thing. So it's
was it something that could have blown up really badly yesterday?
Oh yeah. That's what happens, man. Hospital systems, one of the things is I'm never worried about AI taking my job. All right. Because there are too many ways to mess things up. And usually it just takes someone with a little bit of common sense, to just look at things, and AI can't figure these things out as good as a human with like 5-10 years of experience can. They look at these things, they look at error logs, 2 seconds, they can figure things out and get things running again. Whereas AI will get completely lost. So there's like this thing with like tribal knowledge. I know I was listening to Chad and his stupid thing with Palantir. It's like when he said tribal knowledge, I was like, interesting.
The reason Kris is saying is stupid is because him and Chad go back and forth all the time on.
Not really. Not really.
There's a video of Kris selling Palantir. It's just like a funny video. Chad reposted it.
It is funny. Yeah.
All right, Kris, how did you make sense of this freaking Trump versus Biden stock market? Just like when you saw this, what did you think?
It brought me back to this movie that just came out not too long ago with it's called The Apprentice, and it actually is featuring Donald Trump. And one of the things that that's brought up in the movie is like Roy Cohn, who's like supposedly Donald Trump's like mentor. One of the rules that he has in there is like never admit defeat. Like never. Like even if the other person is dead to rights, got you just say, no, it's not my fault. So this is just him playing this story out. Like, of course it's your fault that the market is down, but once again, it goes right back to that philosophy that I'm never wrong.
Do you think that, so I want to go deeper on this. Do you think he said this is Biden's stock market because he thinks there's more, like, there's two worlds. Either he was being a panican yesterday, right? And he was seeing bad headlines on GDP and he said it's Biden's stock market. Or do you think he knows the stock market's about to get bad and he's warming his base up to the idea that this is not his stock market?
He just doesn't want to take the blame for any of this stuff that he's doing. I think he's smart enough to know that he needs to do what he's doing, but he doesn't want to take the responsibility of the fallout for it. Like like I said, some of the stuff that he's doing is actually positive for the United States. Like reciprocal tariffs is a good idea. Get the other countries to lower their trade barriers. 100% great idea. But putting 45% based on some magical formula that makes no sense, that was stupid. And the thing is, that's on him because someone suggested the idea and he, instead of vetoing, said, no, this is too much. He said, no, I think 45 is great. Let's go 45%. And then the escalation with China, let's just keep escalating. So, I think the idea was good, but the execution was poor. And I think if we really did have reciprocal tariffs and use that, it would have worked out well. Like the market wouldn't have reacted so badly. But
what do you think is going on with Chinese state media yesterday said the U.S. is reaching out. Trump says Xi is reaching out. Do you think there's a deal soon? And do you think that the deal is going to benefit one side over the other? Or do you think it's going to be like a stupid deal that both sides try to say we got the better of each other, but it's like it's a nothing burger?
We need China and China needs us. All right. We're like, the world is too interconnected to where you basically isolate yourself and think that's long-term good for your country. Not to mention, if you look at them, they have huge problems with deflation. We have a huge problem with inflation, right? So technically speaking, that's like a match made in heaven. They sell us cheaper stuff, our inflation goes down, their economy comes back, and ours actually comes down as well. So it kind of works out if these two countries get together and work things out, and I agree that maybe over like the next 10 years, we should strategically decouple slowly, from the Chinese, but we shouldn't like do it the way that it's being done right now, where you're basically disrupting, businesses. And I'm not talking about like large business. I'm talking about a lot of small businesses who have ties with Chinese manufacturers that are feeling the heat right now. And a lot of those businesses, if they go out of business, that's going to cause, might spiral into something worse than just a shallow recession. Could end up being a deep recession. So you're muted.
Sorry. What do you think about the shipments and the inventory potential problems? Like, do you think that's a real concern that Americans won't have the goods on the grocery shelves in a few weeks?
Well, first of all, we don't get groceries from China, right? Like, so I'm not worried about groceries. You're more concerned with things that are more like heavier capital goods that are there. The other problem is you also have a lot of components that are made in China that's used in U.S. Goods. So like, let's say you have, I don't know, a car, right? And you have all these batteries that are made in China and they're imported here. Now the question is, how do you deal with that? Where you're paying 150% for that battery, So you can't sell that car without that. So there's a lot of parts that are made in China that are part of our supply chain here in the United States. So by trying to tariff that, you're also causing pain to the people here. And the thing is, not everything can be replaced by manufacturing here in the US. If we're really focused on producing like high value items like semiconductors and jet engine parts and stuff like that, those are things we definitely need.
But do you think we're actually going to have inventory issues in a few weeks?
I think we're well stocked beyond what a lot of people are expecting. So, there's been a lot of front loading. It really happened in November to December. I think a lot of people saw Trump won and some businesses proactively ordered more. And then January, February, March, there was a lot of ordering. And I think all of that inventory is going to make its way and it's going to work itself out. Right now, the retailers, they had a meeting with Trump and they said, look, we can absorb some of these tariffs, but we can't absorb it for a prolonged period of time. you know, there is enough inventory out there where you haven't seen huge price increases on things like toasters and things that are traditionally, you know, imported from China. But I mean, eventually, you know, those inventories are going to run low. So I think this is a problem for Christmas, not necessarily a problem for the summer.
Right. Right.
You know,
That's
and I
fair.
think that's actually one of the comments. You're actually seeing comments from Besant. Did you see that on Twitter?
He said there's a
You
Christmas.
know?
Yeah.
So I think this is where both sides are kind of like saying like, hey, listen, don't screw over Christmas, you know, and maybe there's some thawing happening in the background, which could positively happen for us. And you know, we'll see where things go.
All right, Chris Patel. Thank you. Chris's comments or Chris's Twitter right there. Last quick question for you. This Tesla Wall Street Journal thing. Any quick take reaction to that?
Bro, I think Wall Street Journal is like starting to lose credibility, man. Like you were right in this morning, and when you said that they care more about clicks than they do about real journalism, and I think that's so sad that mainstream media is becoming like the Inquirer, where like real news stories are being overlooked because they're not sensational enough to justify like people watching it. So it's like you ever seen the Maury Show or Jerry Springer?
Yeah.
Right? It started off
Dude, I was on the show. That's how I found out I had 3 kids.
Yeah, great. No, it starts off with, hey, listen, this is a problem, and then the first time someone punched someone and the viewership went up, oh bro, that was all hell broke loose. And then it was just like start getting the baby mamas with like 3 different baby daddies and trying to figure out who's the daddy. Like it was
good TV, but it's obviously, you know, that's what the Wall Street Journal is becoming when they put stuff out like this. There's a lot of good content they put out, but then when they do something like this, which is just false, right?
Do you notice that about CNN? All their panelists now, they're just find the people who disagree with each other the most and put them in charge. Like, okay, you hate the Republicans, you hate the Democrats, get into a room and just like yell at each other and see how that works out instead of actually people being objective, you know.
Right.
So
right.
All right. I see the chat, so I'll see you.
Appreciate you, brother.
Take care.
Yeah. All right, Vlad was just on CNBC, but we missed it. I think we'll wait for getting that clip because we missed his interview and I can't rewind on this, but we'll get it in a second. I think we have another guest on in the background. So this guest, a favorite of you guys in the chat, and he's going to help us break down why NVIDIA continues to be bullish and why the AI narrative continues to be strong. Jose, what's up, man?
What's going on? Good morning, and good morning to all your viewers.
Good morning to you, brother. NVIDIA, great day. Microsoft, Meta, great day. I think we'll get started with Microsoft. What did they say that got you excited? And is the CapEx AI revolution still on?
Yeah, I mean, I think Microsoft was my favorite, even though Microsoft didn't really increase capital expenditure like we saw Meta do. One thing that Microsoft did mention during the earnings call were, first, AI demand is still strong. Their overall cloud revenue beat expectations because they actually saw more demand in the AI space. Now, Microsoft has been one that I wouldn't say has been bearish on AI demand, but has kind of maybe given us a little bit of more yellow flags in the past. I think last quarter, Microsoft's CFO mentioned that they expected by the end of this fiscal year, which ends in about 2 months from now, that they were going to have this balance of AI infrastructure and AI demand. So in theory, that would mean, oh, maybe we don't need to invest too much in AI infrastructure. But yesterday, the CFO, Amy Hood, mentioned that while they thought about that last quarter, this quarter they saw something completely different, and they're not going to end with that balance anymore. They believe that they're still going to see even more demand than AI infrastructure. So I think Microsoft, I mean, we saw from Google last week, cloud AI demand is still strong. We see now from Microsoft that the demand is strong, and we did see a beat in revenue, in earnings per share, and overall guidance as well.
Okay, so Microsoft crushed it, and the CapEx story is still pretty strong there. Then you had Meta that raised CapEx guidance. Did you expect they would raise it by about $5 billion?
No, I mean, I did not expect it to do it so quickly, right? Because, I mean, they did just come out in quarter 4 and saying that they were going to already spend a massive amount of money. So if they were going to increase it, I thought it was going to happen maybe later on throughout the year, not just the first quarter coming in swinging, especially with all these uncertainties happening on the macro side. So I would have expected them to be maybe a little bit more conservative. So that wasn't there, but in the earnings call, again, they mentioned the same thing. Mark Zuckerberg laid off his plan of how AI is really evolving 5 of their growth opportunities, a lot of them being kind of their core opportunities, but they also talk about kind of like Meta AI and AI devices. And pretty much very similar to what Microsoft, the CFO of Meta, mentioned that even with all the accelerated computing that they're adding right now, because they're pulling some things ahead, their teams are still compute restrained or constrained. So they're still, again, being somewhat responsible on what they're purchasing and how much they're purchasing, but they had to accelerate that investment. And obviously, great news for NVIDIA, great news for other AI accelerated companies. I know a lot of people get mad when I don't include companies like AMD, Arista Networks, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's definitely, I think right now, we saw it from Meta. We saw it from Microsoft. We saw it from Vertiv last week. We saw it from Google last week. The AI market is still pretty strong, and the demand is still there. So there's always a lot of scary stuff popping up already around the news saying that the AI market is dead. And I think hopefully that theory or thesis should be done for now. You're muted, my boy.
Oh, sorry. Brandon, thank you for the $5 super chat. PWR, he says, Mick, can you check them out? They crush. They are the backbone of AI on the grid. Jose, do you know this company? They're up 10% right here.
No, definitely don't follow this one, but maybe one, Brandon, that I might want to look into a little bit.
Yeah, market cap 47.9 billion. I don't follow them either. I believe they're a energy infrastructure company, so it seems like they had a good earnings, probably driven by data center demand, and that's why they're up 10%. Jose, for AMD, Meta works with them. So Meta increasing CapEx, that has to be bullish AMD, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. It is important to understand, though, that Meta, when it uses its CapEx, and it talks about it a lot during its earnings call, that there's 2 ways it uses CapEx. First, it's its core products, and its core products are like recommender systems to make sure you're seeing the best ads and you're staying in their applications the most. Most of those recommender system, and that's where the big CapEx growth is coming for, is usually based on NVIDIA GPUs. Then the other side is the generative AI solutions, and this is kind of maybe some of the llama's inference. AMD does power some of the inference there, but we do have to remember that Meta uses NVIDIA for the training. They have some of the biggest clusters out there. They have multiple 24,000 NVIDIA H100 clusters. I believe last quarter they mentioned that they're building a 100,000 GPU cluster as well. Those types of clusters are not seen at an AMD level just yet. It could be in the future. So this CapEx growth could definitely be seen as a bullish case for AMD, especially since AMD has about $5 billion in revenue for the year last year. So even an extra billion for AMD can be a dramatic growth rate for its overall revenue growth. So it could definitely be seen as a bullish case for AMD. AMD is releasing their new chip, the MI355, in the upcoming month or 2. I forget if it's on May or June. If we see Meta there, I think we can safely assume that Meta is definitely going to be that AMD is going to be a nice winner from this CapEx that Meta just increased.
See, you talk good about freaking AMD. Look at that. You got a follower. Like, dude, people love this company more than NVIDIA. I'm convinced they love it more than NVIDIA. You get bullish on AMD, people start loving you. Okay, cool. So Meta crushed it. Microsoft crushed it. What about Nebis, Jose? What's going on with that company, NBIS?
So I don't follow that one. Did that one report? I do follow kind of the infrastructure play. Recently, I've been a buyer of CoreWeave.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah. So I think the AI infrastructure market is also pretty because of what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a lot of demand for AI solutions. I think a lot of these AI cloud players are also going to focus a lot into renting out space, and CoreWeave has seen a lot of long-term contracts. So whatever I see in CoreWeave, maybe you can kind of throw into the nebulous growth opportunities as well. I don't own that one. I just decided to go with CoreWeave instead. But I think the AI infrastructure, we need more than just the cloud server providers. I think CoreWeave is doing a great job. Semi-analysis, a really, really respectable semi group that I follow, has done some research on them, and it just kind of validates my thought process on CoreWeave. So right now, with the AI infrastructure growing, instead of just focusing on, I know some people kind of focus on the electric side or the power infrastructure. I want to follow more the AI infrastructure itself, as I do believe that's where the big growth opportunity is in. So this is one of ways for me to increase my AI exposure without maybe adding more into NVIDIA or some of my other plays instead.
Okay, so Qualcomm, they're down 8% today. Do you have any idea why? Because they crushed on the top and the bottom.
Yeah, so they crushed on top and bottom, but Qualcomm, unlike kind of like your Meta, your Microsoft, and some of the other players out there, Qualcomm is very heavily consumer dependent, and they do produce a lot of consumer electronics, or their partners, for example, produce a lot of phones with their products. So right now, I think with the tariffs and all the fears in the consumer space, they're giving a very weak guidance. So the guidance that they gave was very weak compared to what the market was expecting. I think their products are a little bit more, how do you say it? A little bit more contagious. Contagious is definitely not the word, but more impactful with tariff news.
Right.
As it is more consumer dependent, where you have like your Microsoft and everybody else that is more cloud dependent, and you don't really see that too much being impacted by tariffs right now. So I think Qualcomm is just more of a weaker guidance, but they definitely have some growth opportunities, in my opinion, in the future. In the short term, I think there's going to be a lot of scary bearish takes for that company.
We are seeing the S&P pump, guys, 1.25%. Seeing some nice momentum here. Tesla, NVIDIA, Palantir, all of them. NVIDIA getting back closer to that 114 level. So don't see the reason for that, but maybe we are getting a bit of momentum. Might be a headline. Also might just be algos at this. Oh, we just had... No, that's not it. That's an NVIDIA quote. Oh, so speaking of NVIDIA, what did you think about Jensen and Trump yesterday? This is your largest position. Did you like seeing him with Trump at the White House?
I mean, Jensen's a funny guy. He was funny by saying that how Trump was doing some, I forget what was the term he was saying, but when he was talking about being very persuasive by his ways. I mean, I think NVIDIA is going to continue to dominate. I don't think I've ever said that I've been excited for an earnings quarter. I think most earning quarters are pretty flatline of what to expect for NVIDIA. But these past quarter, we've heard from Microsoft saying that there's too much AI demand. We heard Meta say that they're accelerating their capital expenditure for some of these servers. I'm going to make a bold here prediction that I think this is going to be a very, very good quarter for NVIDIA in the upcoming months. So I'm very excited for NVIDIA's earnings. My biggest position, and I'm super bullish in that company, obviously.
Any thoughts about new DeepSeek models and if that hurts NVIDIA?
I don't think the actual DeepSeek models will hurt. I mean, in theory, if you have released a DeepSeek model or any type of model, most of the cloud server providers are going to be running that model based on their cloud infrastructure. And then whoever is designing an application on that DeepSeek model will most likely be using NVIDIA GPUs or some other form of AI infrastructure. So if you have a model that's super cheap, and then you start to see an increased growth in app developers use it, those app developers are going to go to a cloud infrastructure. Those cloud infrastructures are powered by NVIDIA GPUs. So it might create maybe a short-term headline saying, hey, look, DeepSeek is ending the AI market. I think it's just going to continue to showcase that the AI demand is still pretty strong.
Okay, last question for you, Jose. But before I ask you this question, Jose does a newsletter every single day. Is it every day? It's every week.
Yeah, it's on the weekly, at least every weekday. This week we had already talked about a few earnings that happened on Monday, a few earnings that happened on Tuesday, and I will be releasing in the upcoming hours what's happening with Microsoft, Meta, and Qualcomm. After I finish reading the Qualcomm transcript today.
Whatthechip.com. He came on like a month ago. He was like 200 subscribers. Now it's 2,000. So he's 10x very quickly. Great newsletter. I read it as well. And you guys can subscribe to that right there. I'm putting Jose's Twitter right there in the chat as well. So I was going to ask you, About SMCI. Yeah. Why the hell did they take back guidance by $1 billion? And is it concerning for NVIDIA at all?
So I think it's the way I see it, right? So first, SMCI, I think it might be more of an inventory issue on SMCI. If you look at the report, they mentioned two things very, very specific. They mentioned that they're seeing weakness on their older products, but they're seeing robust, I think was the word they used, robust demand on newer products. So what I believe is happening is, and yeah, so new generation product design wins are robust. What I think is happening is Supermicro got a little bit too excited and bought a lot of Hopper generation GPUs. The market right now doesn't care about Hoppers anymore. They care about Blackwell. Blackwell is ramping up and is kind of pushing into this upcoming quarter. So they mentioned they saw some delay in customers from Q3 to platform decisions moved into Q4. What I believe, if I was a data center company right now or some form of big AI infrastructure player, I would say if I could wait a month or two and not get a Hopper platform and get a Blackwell platform, I would gladly do it. So I think what ended up happening is Supermicro had too much inventory of the Hopper. They overestimated the demand of the Hopper, and that demand is transferring very, very quickly to the Blackwell system. I don't think it's a bad news for NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA is now just ramping up mainly the Blackwell platform and is eventually going to reduce that demand of Hopper overall. So I think it's more of if you're a company that has managed that inventory pretty well, it seems maybe Supermicro didn't. Now the question is, how is it going to go in the future?
Do you think it has anything to do with China or no?
I think it could have a little bit, but remember, kind of this Q3 impact ended in March. I forget what was the date that they had, but I don't think the China revenue it ended on March 31st. I think the final H20 band happened sometime in April.
Right.
So I don't think it included in that. I think the market just and especially since that was for that revenue. So I don't think it's too much on the China space there.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That makes sense. And then just a couple real rapid fire questions. Micron, bullish on that still, or?
Yeah, I mean, memory space, AI space, still very needed. So I think Micron is definitely doing really well, especially since Samsung is kind of lagging the ball here. So it's a two-player market right now in the memory space.
And then Lam Research.
Bullish in the semiconductor equipment space. I mean, we saw TSM announce massive investments. We're seeing the growth of just more supply chain lines. So Lam Research and anybody dealing in the semiconductor equipment space definitely has nice tailwinds to go from here.
Have you looked at IOND, Evan? Thanks for the super chat.
No, I have not. I'm gonna have to, Evan. I feel like I might have heard it from someone else as well. So now two people mentioning maybe I should do a little bit of reading on it. So Evan, thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, this one was a small cap. I mean, it's still a small cap, $1 billion, but they pumped heavy last quarter. So I will look at them as well because they might be playing a role in AI. All right, Jose, actual last question for you. Amazon, do you think they crushed it today with AWS? And do you think that also just helps NVIDIA?
Yeah. So I expect strong growth from them in AWS. I mean, I think we've continued. We've heard from their vice president of data center, who kind of debunked a lot of the news a few weeks ago, mentioned that they're still seeing strong demand in AI and cloud solutions. So I think AWS kills it. I think we hear the same thing that AI demand is still higher than capacity. The only thing with Amazon is obviously with tariff stuff, maybe the market might be more worried about them for the e-commerce side and how that might impact, especially with some random news that happened a few days ago. So I think maybe for Amazon, unfortunately, the market might be a little bit more concerned about the e-commerce side opposed to the cloud side, even though the cloud side is where the money is being made.
Right. All right, Jose, what the chip happened. Appreciate you as always, brother. We'll be joining each other pretty soon for NVIDIA earnings. So
thank you and appreciate it.
Yep, I'll see you then. Jose, thank you. See you later. All right, folks, there you go. So I don't think Vlad was on CNBC. I think they did a segment on him. I don't think they actually had him in terms of an interview, but this is a little bit of that, and then we'll talk about Tesla with the Wall Street Journal stuff. But I don't think he was actually on doing an interview today.
Assets trade 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Most customers still come to us and buy their first stock with us, and they build portfolios. But in terms of what drives the revenue, active traders trading, options and crypto, and increasingly now futures trading.
That interview might have been in this morning, but they didn't post the whole thing. So when they post the whole thing, we'll watch it. But yeah, that might have been this morning. But it seems like more of a segment versus like a full interview live.
He also told me all of this trading momentum has continued in April amid all the volatility, especially with futures, where the April numbers topped all of Q1. Same with options. Also says there's strong dip buying among that retail crowd. Stocks up sharply. Actually, it turned around this morning. It was up sharply, guys, but lower. But you can check out that full interview on CNBC.com. Back to you.
All right. We'll do that. Kate, thank you. Kate Rooney.
I'll try to get that interview. Let's get some of the Tesla coverage now from that Wall Street Journal stuff, and then we'll keep going from there. Trump is speaking at 11. I don't know what he's talking about, but at 11, we will switch to him.
Has more on that. Maybe we'll also get to GM as well. Phil.
Yeah, we'll talk about GM. We'll talk about Ford sales. But let's start first off with Tesla. As you mentioned, David, this report from the Wall Street Journal has a lot of people talking. The report essentially says that according to people that the Journal talked with, there were some directors on the Tesla board who reached out to executive search firms and considered the process or beginning the process for potentially replacing Elon Musk. Now, it never advanced beyond that, according to the report in the Wall Street Journal. But as you take a look at shares of Tesla, keep in mind that it wasn't long after this report came out that we heard from Chairman Robin Denholm. She said, that's not true. They deny the report that they were considering possibly replacing Elon Musk. He did say, remember, last week that he plans to focus more time and attention on Tesla and less on the Department of Government Efficiency. Let's shift gears and talk about General Motors, out with new guidance for 2025. They now expect to earn between $10 and $12.5 billion this year. That's down about $3 to $3.5 billion compared to the old guidance in January. They expect the tariffs to cost anywhere between $4 and $5 billion. That's before the government offsets that were just announced by the Trump administration. Here's Mary Barra talking this morning about the possibility of adding more production here in the United States.
When we look at the auto industry, it's been decades of not having a level playing field around the world. So we're working with a footprint that's been in position for, in some cases 20, 30 years. But we are making a commitment that we are going to bring more production back to this country to build on what we already have.
Finally, take a look at shares of Ford, out with April sales this morning. We knew it would be a big month with people saying, I got to buy before any tariff increases happen in the showroom. In terms of pricing, their sales up 16.2%. Not a surprise to hear that the EV demand, it's off considerably, down 39.4% in the month of April for Ford. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
Just because you were talking about the Tesla and the board story, Phil, I mean, we've talked about Tesla's board before and how this company doesn't necessarily follow the traditional path on corporate governance. There's been board drama and headlines before. Can you just remind us of what it looks like?
You mean in terms of the board, in terms of the composition? Are they all
it's because it's smaller, right?
Well, they've added a few more outsiders, so to speak, on the Tesla board. But let's be clear here, Sarah. Let's not fool anybody. The sun rises and sets with Elon Musk at Tesla. He's the largest shareholder. And while there may have been some directors who may not have been happy that he was spending so much time and attention on helping the federal government cut costs while not focusing as much attention on Tesla, when that share started sliding, they finally may have said, and this is according to the Journal, hey, what's going on here? That's my takeaway from reading this Journal report. And frankly, that's what you would want the board of any company to do. The stock is cratering. Let's find out exactly how committed the CEO is. And Elon Musk remains committed to Tesla. He made that clear on the conference call. He's not going anywhere. But you know what you get when Elon's committed. He's got a wandering eye and a wandering mind in terms of some.
Here's my thing. If Elon said he wasn't going anywhere on the earnings call and the Tesla board is not getting rid of him, then the Wall Street Journal putting out the article is a blatant lie. There might be nuances to the fact that maybe there are certain board members that are thinking like, what's going on? The stock's down. We need to think of what's the succession plan. But if they don't have definitive evidence that they have, remember the headline. The headline of the article was, we have the board of directors has opened a search for a new successor. That is a very formal way to make the argument that Elon is now getting ready to be replaced. They had no evidence of that. And Elon himself denied it on the earnings call just a week ago. So that is why I think the article was more so looking for clicks. You can't get that deep into the weeds and be like, well, if you look at it this way, it's like, no, dude, if you're going to make that type of accusation, you've got to have rock hard, solid evidence, probably leaked by a board member that wants the story to get out. But if there's no formal investigation into it, then it's just fake news at that point.
Something else might come up and take his attention away for a day, a week, a month. Who knows?
Well, like he said in the cabinet meeting, he wears many hats, right? Literally and figuratively. Thank you, Phil. Phil about. After the break, the head of.
Yeah, dude, the Tesla thing is stupid. The Tesla thing is stupid. I don't think there's too much to dive into it. It's just like if Tesla says no, then they say no. This is Dan Ives on what happened with Tesla.
What he is a must. That was a code red situation, and it was the most important conference call he ever had to do, and he handled it. I think the best I've ever seen him. Pick Tesla. He's going to lead them into this next chapter when it comes to autonomous robotics, and ultimately, I think that more and more a growth rebound that we see in China. And his days at the White House are done. However you want to call it, 1 to 2 days a week. I mean, I think this is the beginning of the end. The board was not going to take it. Shareholders are not going to take it. But that's, you're talking about one of the biggest disruptive technology companies in the world. Musk is Tesla. Tesla is Musk.
On your commute across the nation this morning, and of course on YouTube, Dan Ives with us with Wedbush, looking over here to see the Secretary of Treasury in conversation, I believe with Maria over at Fox News. We'll monitor those headlines from the Secretary of Treasury. It seems, Paul, every time he speaks, is that press conference the other day, he moves the markets.
He does. Hey, Dan, just on the EV front here, I mean, there's a lot of, I guess, fundamental concerns here. If you're a Tesla investor, I guess that just from the car business, I know Elon's trying to have you focus on other areas, but boy, BYD and the Chinese operators are just really tough, aren't they?
Yeah, look, I mean, we've seen it firsthand in China, many times. I mean, BYD has done phenomenal. But I think it's not a mutually exclusive. In other words, like Tesla is going to be also successful in China like they have been. When it comes to the EV market, I mean, Paul, I think 90% of the future value of Tesla is going to be autonomous and robotics. I mean, that's my view.
And Dan, just to be clear here, the board at Tesla thinking about a replacement, that's not even thought of, is it really?
Again, Keen, he didn't want to do it. So after he took his hat out of the ring, there was no one left. I think, but Paul, they had to do something. Whether Tesla denies it, or they had to do a warning shot. It got to, and we talked about it with you guys while on the show. It hit that moment of truth.
Right.
Again, you either believe in the autonomous story when it comes to Tesla or you don't. Dan Ives, obviously someone who believes in it, which is why he is still bullish. Tesla right here, up 2% on the day, 288, even with the Wall Street Journal headline. And maintaining some of their momentum. Meta right here, still up 6.3. Palantir trying to get back to 120, 118.81. And then Microsoft, story of the day, 9%. Not slowing down. Grab went green again after going red for a little bit. And then Robinhood, little recovery. It was down 5%. Now it's down 2.8. I think we bought what, 20 shares at 46.85. Right now 47.76. Again, I think it should be up a lot more after those earnings, but I can understand why the market might not want to give it that premium right now. Google right here 163, and then Amazon at 190 on the day. We have the Chamber of Commerce on CNBC. Here's what she has to say about these tariffs. We should be having Trump speaking in about 15 minutes.
Mostly for small businesses. And this comes just about exactly a month after most of these tariffs have been announced. Why this approach and why only now?
Thank you so much for being here and for the question. Look, at the end of the day, we were just getting inundated by small business requests for information, for relief, people afraid for the very survival of their business. And it just felt that it's hard for them to hire lobbyists and lawyers and make the push on their own. We know this administration cares deeply about the economy, about Main Street businesses, and we wanted to make sure that their stories, their need for relief was really pushing through.
You guys sued the Biden administration, I think at least 20 times.
21,
and opted not to do that this time. Why not that? Why not take that approach?
It's a great question. Look, I think there are legitimate questions about the use of IEPA, and we do worry about government overreach, about government micromanagement of business in any administration. And so the constitutional question about IEPA worries us about what the next president might declare an emergency and what the remedy might be. But in this case, the courts take a long time. And what small business needs, what all business needs, is more immediate relief.
Even at going for a preliminary injunction or something like that?
I think that was an option, but again, not a sure thing. And so the issue is this administration does care about the economy. And what we want to do is get back to January, where people were optimistic about slowing down this regulatory onslaught of the Biden administration, about extending the tax cuts, about energy production, about permitting, when people were excited about the growth that could happen in the United States. And by the way, we're excited about the potential free trade deals. We tried to get the Biden administration for years to do a free trade deal. We think that's great for American businesses, great for American families. But these tariffs are just adding uncertainty and complexity at a time when these small businesses just don't have the cash flow to cover it.
I'm curious if litigation might still be an option for you guys, because I want to play some sound for you. We asked the White House this morning to respond to your letter. Take a listen to this.
The relief for small businesses is going to come in the form of the largest tax cut in American history.
No on tariff relief for small businesses in the short term?
It's a yes on tax relief for small businesses.
That's gotta be insane, bro. That's a small business. Paying taxes is one thing. But if you have to pay 145% on your cost of goods, guess what? They're going to get a lot of relief from taxes. They're not going to pay that many taxes because there's not going to be that many profits. I mean, like that can't be the White House's stance, that the tax cuts are like, am I crazy here? Do I hate Trump right now? Am I being some crazy left-wing extremist by saying that is the most ridiculous thing I've heard? Imagine if you have a small business and you have to pay 145% because you're selling candles and now your margins, which were maybe 5%, have gone to zero. They've gone negative. But I get a tax cut. Like, come on, bro. It's insanity. That's absolute insanity. Anyone with a real small business selling physical goods will tell you that is insane.
So that was Stephen Miller responding to our Eamon Javers, suggesting there was not tariff relief coming, that taxes would have to be the way to go. What's your response to that?
Well, first, my response is this is great. This is what we want to be talking about, which is small business relief. My second response is the administration has no stronger ally than the U.S. Chamber in getting these Trump tax cuts extended. I'm going to Arizona tonight to do a tax roundtable. We want to make sure we're in 100 districts really building up support and intellectual arguments for why they help American families and grow the economy. That said, this isn't a tax cut. This is the extension of the current tax situation. So the problem with it is it's not new tax cuts. It's preventing the largest tax increase in history. We need more immediate relief.
I think Sarah has a question for you.
Yeah, no, it's
Sarah?
good to have you on the show. I'm curious because part of the goal of the administration is to bring back American manufacturing and grow the economy in a more balanced way, they say, when it comes to global trade. Do you not buy that that's possible, given some of the uncertainties and the negatives you're talking about from tariffs?
No, of course we buy that it's possible. But when I talk to CEOs who want to build more and want to invest more here, what they worry about is labor constraints. What they worry about is energy supply. What they worry about is permitting. All things that I think the Trump administration is ready to tackle. They worry about the regulatory scheme after the biggest regulatory onslaught we'd seen in the Biden administration. These are all things that the Trump administration has been focused on, that we're working on them with. So yes, I think we can build more here and grow more here. But when you have tariffs on things that we don't even grow here, like bananas and coffee, or when you have tariffs on businesses that lead to layoffs, they need immediate relief, or they need an exemption process that lets them figure out time to plan a supply chain, to have certainty. You know, Sarah, what I heard a CEO say was, it's like driving in the fog. You don't go faster. You pull over and you put on your hazards until you figure out how to go fast and how to get back on track.
In deciding not to take a stronger approach here, and by that I mean not suing, at least at this time, is there a degree to wanting to try to preserve the relationship with the White House so that you can work together on taxes and deregulation, even though you oppose them on the tariff front?
I guess that's a good question. I hadn't thought about it like that, because you can imagine that we're working with the administration all the time. Dr. Oz was here this week for a health summit, right? I think it's our job to be working with the administration and helping grow the economy in any way that we can. So I don't see it as an either or situation. The question was, what's the most effective advocacy for the fastest response. And the truth is, when we talk to people in the administration, they're very eager to hear these stories of small business. They're very eager to hear what the real experience on Main Street is.
Suzanne, I think we have to.
All right, there you go. Small businesses, they are getting a bit crushed by these tariffs. White House National Security Advisor Waltz to leave post. All right, so we got a White House National Security Advisor who's leaving. I don't think I've ever listened to Walt speak, so I don't know that guy, but that might be for any reason. That might not be for a unique reason, but we'll try to get some more updates on that. Jose, thanks for the 5 gifted. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for being here and blessing us with your knowledge about the broader markets. But yeah, dude, what I just said, I really don't think is political. And it kind of drives me insane when you do 2 + 2 = 4 and say that's political. If you own a small business and you can't afford the tariffs on that business, most small businesses get a lot of their stuff from China, and your business now doesn't have any margins. Most of these businesses don't have juicy margins because there's advertising, packaging, shipping. There's all these other costs because that's what it takes to run a business. And then the White House's response to someone who is selling candles is, well, you're going to have tax cuts, but your cost of goods just doubled. Like, how does that make sense? How is that reasonable? Now, if the White House said, hey, maybe you shouldn't be selling candles from China, I would rather like that response. If the White House was like, hey, buy your candles from American suppliers because we want you to buy American and then sell to Americans inside of America, okay, that's actually a way better response. But to say, oh, no, don't worry, we're going to cut your taxes and that's how it'll be solved, that's just a slap in the face, bro. It's an absolute slap in the face. And I don't get how that's political. Like, where is the politics there? Like, where is that political? Where is that saying, oh, Trump is bad or Biden's good? It's like, it's just like 2 + 2 = 4. That's all I'm trying to say. And I based on what they're saying, their explanation is not rooted in buy in America. If that's what they're implicitly implying, then they should just explicitly say it. Their argument is, you'll be okay. Robinhood, by the way, 4820, because we're going to cut your taxes. And I don't think that makes a lot of sense. By the way, if the tariffs increase inflation and people don't have the money to spend, it doesn't matter if you cut my small business taxes because people won't have more money until you get people to pay less taxes, which is a very big thing to do. This pie in the sky idea of $200,000 or less income, you're going to pay no income tax. I would say there's a 99% chance that's not going to happen. And I hope I'm wrong, because that would be amazing for Americans to not have to pay income tax on 200 grand of income. But the idea that they actually pull that off, the amount of tariff revenue that would be necessary to pull that off, it doesn't make sense, bro. It does not make any sense. So I don't know. I don't get it. And if you want to call that TDS, then go ahead. Call that freaking TDS. At this point, I don't care, dude. Like, yeah, that's TDS. That's Trump derangement syndrome. I think this channel was pretty friendly to Trump on the election, getting coverage. Obviously, we critiqued a lot of Harris policies from an economic perspective, the freaking wealth tax. Like, I think we were pretty friendly towards more common sense stuff that Trump was talking about on the border, yada, yada. But like, I'm not going to worship the guy. If he has some stupid policies, I'm going to say in my opinion, some of them are dumb. And that's really been interesting to me throughout this entire time as well. People just don't want to critique. People are like, oh, don't critique because like you're being emotional. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, the whole point of this country was based on the idea that we can question things, that we have free speech. And so when Trump tweets out that it's Biden's stock market, oh, it's being emotional. It's like, no, I'm saying the president of the United States that claimed on January 29th that it was his stock market, that if anything, he's being emotional because 3 months later, he's saying it's not my stock. Like, how, like it's I don't even know how to explain the type of people you're talking to when they say you're being emotional, you're being a crybaby, you have TDS, you don't understand what's going on. Like, okay, dude. All right, buddy. Do what you got to do. Yeah, becoming a communist here. Like, it's unbelievable, dude. It is unbelievable. And that doesn't mean everything Trump does is bad. That doesn't mean everything the Democrats do. It just means we can say, like, there's a very good line in 1984, which I'm forgetting the quote of, but I saw the quote the other day. Oh, no, I'll pull it up right here. I know where I found it. This line, the Democrats are guilty of it, but so are the Republicans right now in terms of how they're essentially gaslighting us. The quote from 1984, George Orwell, is, where is it right here? Damn it, I lost the quote. I thought I had it saved. But the idea is when they start telling you to deny what you're seeing in your real eyes, that's when there's an issue. If anyone has the quote, let me know what the quote is. But the quote, I saw it, I thought I saved it. But the quote is like, when they start telling you to not believe what you're seeing in your own eyes, that's when you know it's starting to become a problem. When they're starting to tell us, hey, things are going to be okay. And it's like small businesses can't afford that tariff. And your best argument is we're going to cut your taxes. It's not going to be okay. It's not going to be okay for those small businesses. So I don't know, dude. I don't know. It's just, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it is what it is. That doesn't mean Trump is horrible. That doesn't mean his policies are horrible, but some things we're allowed to critique, or I would assume it's okay that we're allowed to critique. And by the way, the Democrats did that too. The Democrats made us think that Biden was like able to talk. He wasn't able to talk, right? They kept saying he was healthy, he was fine, and they barely let this guy speak in front of everybody. So they're guilty of it as well. But when you're saying the tariffs are not going to have an impact on small businesses, like, no, like we're obviously saying it can have an impact. And I think we got to call it out from both angles. But yes, I agree with Shane right here. We need deals. We need deals. Everything changes. And, you know, the other thing I don't get, people are like, oh, well, if the stock market goes up, then all of this freaking out, it doesn't matter. It's like, first of all, if the stock market goes up in a year and all this shit we went through theoretically doesn't matter, right? Then what's the point of even caring about the markets? At that point, don't even open your brokerage app, right? The whole point of making content and covering the markets is trying to analyze what's happening on the day-to-day. Now, is there implications of that analyzation? Yeah, one of those implications is I don't want to be heavily levered in options because there's too much volatility. And so that's a decision I'm making. Does that mean I want to get out of the markets, or do I think people should get out of the markets? No, because as retail investors, the markets are our best shot. And at the end of the day, we should be buying dips on companies that do well. But that doesn't mean you just don't analyze objectively nonsense. And some of this administration and the policies they've been imposing are absolute and utter nonsense, which is why they're levying back what they put forward. 145% tariffs, never mind. No 145% tariffs. Reciprocal tariffs, never mind. 10% flat. Oh, that 10% flat delayed for 90 days. Like, when it goes back and forth like that, I think it's okay to objectively critique. Yeah, here it is. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. Look, we're not in a communist dictatorship or anything like that, but I'm just saying when they tell you to just not pay attention to what you're seeing, that's an issue. Like, it's okay to be able to critique it. And I think that's kind of the bedrock of democracy, to being able to critique some of the stuff we're seeing right now. All right, Trump is not live yet. Oh, here's Rob. No, we don't have the Robinhood interview. I've been trying to find the Vlad one, but it's not on their website. Let me see if there's a live stream right here on Trump. What is he even talking about today at 11 a.m.? What is he talking about at 11 a.m.? Don't you see a strategy to that, though? No, I see zero strategy. What is the strategy on saying 145% tariffs on China and then walking it back? And what is Xi Jinping doing? Nothing. He did nothing to get them to walk back those tariffs. He just sat back. Like, where is the strategy, dude? And until we get a deal done, I mean, look, if we get a phenomenal deal, I'll be like, yep, that was a great strategy. But so far, we don't have a phenomenal deal. Number two, how phenomenal does the deal have to be? Because the deal, if the deal is like some baby concession, we went through all this to like get Thailand to buy another couple billion more of our products. And I don't think the United States has a lot of leverage with China. I don't think China has a lot of leverage with the United States. You know what happens? You come to a very basic agreement when no side has a lot of leverage. So what exactly are we going to pull out from the hat in regards to this amazing deal with China that required losing $11 trillion in the stock market? Which, by the way, created a great dip for everybody if you bought the dip. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Retail buys the dip. But, like, what was the point of that? That's a simple question. What was the point of this? And I just don't think we have an answer to that. At least not right now. He went from they're all kissing my ass to I'm worried about China. They will struggle. They should call me. Yeah, dude. And it's like, what it is like the two, we have two extremes. Biden said nothing. No one knew what he was doing. And then Trump is contradicting himself every other day. And it went from, hey, they're all calling me, kissing my ass, to, well, China should call me pretty soon because I'm worried about them. It's like, we're not stupid, right? Like, especially investors, we can see what's happening in front of our eyes. It's like they don't have the leverage. But neither does China. It's not like China's beating us. It's just that we need them. They need us. We got to be able to figure it out. And going through this parade or charades of a game is just starting to feel ridiculous. In the midst of all of that, I think the wrong implication is going bearish and selling out of everything. And I've seen a lot of bears that did that back in February, like, I'm just done. I'm getting out of the market. That's fine. Maybe that helps you with your mental piece, but I think you don't bet against America. But that also doesn't mean you don't objectively analyze and critique what's happening in America. And when Trump does something, like Trump brought over a ton of investments. He got NVIDIA to do 500 billion, Apple doing 500 billion, TSM doing 100 billion. That's great. That's incredible. That's amazing. That's good. But some of the stuff with the tariffs is stupid. And I think we can be objective and analyze it from both perspectives. Where's Bitcoin? By the way, the 10-year is rising again, which is also really annoying right now. 10-year, it was at 4.14, now it's back at 4.2. So we're getting a sell-off right there on the 10-year. Bitcoin, I think, is getting some momentum. Wow, 97. Holy crap. Dude, Hood is... Hood, it's kind of close to going green. But the fact that Hood's not green yet with Bitcoin at these levels, I mean, pretty incredible. That's why I bought it down 5%. I'm like, okay, look, after those earnings, down 5% feels a little stupid, but I can understand why the market's not gapping up 10%, but I don't know if they need to go down 5% here. Bitcoin, 97,020 right here on Biddy. Wow, MicroStrategy. When's the last time it was at 401? Holy crap. Look at that. 5.6%. All right, let me see these Hood options. All right, let's see if we can do a trade right here. If it shows up on Legend. So let me just show you guys the position. This is, I think I showed this a while ago, but this is the position. So $9,500 spreads. You can see right there, the average price is 53 cents. I have 500 of them. Call debit spreads, which means I need Hood to get to 95 by January 2027. We're up 7,000 on them. They're up 30%, but it's not realistically up 7,000 in my opinion because the spread pricing. So for example, it says the spread is worth 70 cents. I'm going to put in an order right now to close 100 of them at 70 cents. It's probably not going to close because the width of the spread is going to be too much. All right, so I placed an order. If it closes at 70 cents, great, but Hood would probably have to get to like 52, 53 to even think of getting there. But I'm up on them right now, and I kind of just don't want to take the risk of Hood having to get to 100 in the next year in order to make money on these. But because we have so much time on the contract, we can still sell them right now for a profit without having to worry about it. Wow, SPY's up 1.6. What happened? I mean, the ISM data was okay, but yeah, finally that just turned Hood green, 0.03% green because of the SPY going up almost 2% and Bitcoin at 97. Goodness, dude. Kind of feels like Hood got manipulated today more than anything. And I know I explained why Hood doesn't have to be up 10%, but it definitely didn't need to go down 5. And with the S&P moving like this, that is a bit weird. S&P right here, 1.53 on the day. But yeah, that is the Hood spread position, and that is the goal of taking those out. Honestly, I'd rather just buy stock and sell covered calls against them aggressively versus have the money tied up in options, have no access to that money for like 2 years. Like that was good when Hood was at $8 and you could actually wait 2 years. Now it's just like this too volatile to be waiting this long because you just never know how it's going to play out. Like when Hood was 8, I was very confident it would get to 20. And I had till 2026, bro, for it to get to 20. I had freaking 2.5 years for it to get to $20. Now I have 1.5 years for it to get to 100. It's just a different ballpark. HIMS right here up 7% on the day as well. 35.40 on HIMS. I'll be looking to buy again if it falls below 30. But you got HIMS right here at 35.37 right now. Is Trump live? Let me see. I don't have any live streams of him set up. On the White House doesn't have a live stream yet either. Let me see. Let me try to find it. I don't see it. Nasdaq's up 395. Yup. Where's Grindr? Yeah, we got to check Grindr on Legend for the first time. Let's do it. Where's Grindr? Dude, 2236, 1.78. Told you guys, your boy wasn't crazy. Said they had a monopoly on gay dating. They have a monopoly on gay dating. It's just that simple. Tesla right here at 289. That's up 2.67%. Where is NVIDIA? NVIDIA 113.45. NVIDIA still up 4%. Dude, where is this Trump live stream? I don't see him anywhere. Trump live. Is he actually going live? They reported he was going live at 11 a.m. Was that the Wall Street Journal? Was that fake news? Trump. Oh, this is not going to be something that we. Yeah, this is Trump is hosting a national day of prayer. Yeah, I don't think that's going to necessarily. I don't think it's going to be talking about tariffs when they're praying, I would imagine. So, yeah. I don't think we need to watch that. Okay, cool. So we can move on from the net. 49.29 on Hood. Would not surprise me if we gap up to the 50s, especially with the S&P moving like this. Praying for a deal with China. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, we don't need to watch that. That's not going to be about the markets. Yeah, dude, we are going green though. I mean, Besant was on. Let me pull. Besant did talk a little bit today. Let's listen to Besant. He was on Fox this morning. He probably helped get the market to be a little bit more even keel. VIX has also died down, right? Where's the VIX? VIXy down 3%. VIX almost below 20, 23 right here. I think it was at 50 a couple weeks ago. So that could be helping a little bit right now. Yes, Oklo's up. And so Oklo should be up. Oklo, CEG, all the freaking energy companies. Constellation, that's up. Wow, 8%. Oklo is up 11%. VST, I'm going to guess 5%. VST, 7.4. VRT, I'll guess 5.5. 9.8. Wow. So Microsoft is to thank for the data center companies that are absolutely crushing it right now. And the end result goes back to NVIDIA, which is cheaper than all of them from a multiple perspective. Which is why I think that's the buy in this AI CapEx cycle. Hood finally going green. Let's see if we can break 50. I think 50 would be reasonable here, but it's got to hold up. Hims and Reddit up 6%. Earnings today after the bell. So we have Apple, Amazon, Reddit, Airbnb, Duolingo, Big Bear AI, Roku, Block, MicroStrategy, Twilio, Instacart, Atlassian, and GoDaddy. Okay, so today's going to be a very busy market close. Apple and Amazon obviously top of priority, but there's a lot of other companies that will be reporting. I'm using Robinhood Legend. We're using Legend now over Webull. Yes, it's Legend. The reason I wasn't using Legend for so long is because they didn't have the right-hand side of the screen where you could see the price. But now they have it. I did tell them, though, I don't like the colors. And so I'm going to try to convince them to change this to a regular green and red because I don't know why it's this neon green. But I told them, I had a call with them. I was like, guys, like, and they do a lot of calls. They talk to their users a lot. Some of you guys might have even participated in some of these calls, but they actively try to talk to their users and see and get updates and all this stuff. And I told them, look, you got to add the price. And then these colors are just like weird. Like, why is it pink? Like, you just make it a regular green and red. So hopefully they change that, but they were able to pull up the widget for the price, and that's making it a lot easier to stream with. Yeah, even color customization, right? Like they should allow us to just pick our colors. Dude, you want to hear a crazy stat? So Robinhood gets about 40 million websites visits a month, right? Pretty good. Not bad for Robinhood. Well, one of their competitors, at least in the active trader space, I saw this yesterday and I was like, oh, now I know why Robinhood launched Legend. TradingView gets 200 million visits a month. I mean, bro, TradingView is not even a brokerage. I know it's a way that you can you can do trades through TradingView on other brokerages, but like, dude, if they can get Legend to anywhere near that, and that's just one part of their business, that's going to be crazy. That's going to be crazy. Trying to imagine you on earnings later. Oh, Amazon is yellow. We're going yellow candle. Yeah, we need red. We need that. I literally told them, I was like, guys, on earnings, it's really fun when it goes up and down, green and red, right? Like that's the whole point of it. So we need to actually see that. Bitcoin as well, getting some love right here. Bitcoin, 97,000. Oh, here's another stat on freaking Hood earnings. Bro, prediction markets are on a $20 million run rate. It came out last month. Prediction markets launched last month, and this is what I mean about innovation. $20 million run rate, and they launched the product last month. I just think for the next decade, they're just going to keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again. And it's going to start to be those wild things that we witness. So it is pretty damn incredible. Him's right here again, running as well. Him's getting some love. $35. Amid the Lakers loss. Yeah, that was a bad loss, dude. That was anyone see that game? I kind of turned it off in the fourth quarter. I could tell what was happening. It was not fun seeing that, but Anthony Edwards, bro, that guy has some dog in him. He looks like, I mean, the Michael Jordan comparisons are already starting. He's got that swagger to him when he's able to be on the court and just he talks trash like MJ did. He's amazing at just getting to the rim. Like it was tough to see LeBron lose, but Anthony Edwards, absolutely incredible right now. So NVIDIA, where is NVIDIA? NVIDIA. 113.75 volume on NVIDIA today. By the way, volume on Hood is 46 million. Hood doesn't get 46 million shares traded. Dude, Hood's average volume. Actually, well, no, Hood's average, I thought it was less than that. Hood's average volume is 45 million, but they have 46 million already today. Really? Hood's average volume used to be like 15 million. When did it turn into 45 million? NVIDIA has traded 91 million shares today. Their average volume is 290, so they are well on track to pass that. Damn, I didn't know Hood trades 45 million shares a day. I thought it was much, much less than that, but well, it's becoming more high beta, so that makes sense. But Hood already trading 46 million today. And then Tesla's volume, Tessie right here. NVIDIA goes green, 114. Tessie is 43 million shares have been traded already on Tesla. NVIDIA right here. There you go, 114, baby, up 4.9%. Oh, boy. Holy, there we go. That's why the S&P was up 1.6 30 minutes ago. U.S. weighs easing NVIDIA chip curbs on UAE as Trump plans a visit. Bullish. Now that's not China, but bullish. It's not China, but bullish. There you go. 114 on NVIDIA. I didn't even know they had chip controls in the UAE on NVIDIA. I guess they did. So, although it's not China, still matters. And that's creating a little bit of a pump. That's creating a little bit of a pump. I really didn't know they were banned in the UAE or like they couldn't sell that much. But Middle East, it makes sense. They weren't able to probably be able to sell as much as we thought. Yeah, NVIDIA right here pumping. All right, here's Besant on Fox this morning. Here's what he had to say more about these tariffs.
A royal flush, because now we can take these cards and go and show the Russian leadership that that there is no daylight between the Ukrainian people, the American people, between our goals. So this is very innovative, and President Trump, as always, pushed this across himself.
Yeah, wow, what a deal. So no daylight. Does that mean that the U.S. is going to provide military support, increased military support for the Ukrainians in this war with Russia? That's number one. And number two is, when we were all speculating about this deal, there was some speculation that 50% of the revenues would go into a fund that the U.S. had access to in terms of the value, 50% of the value of those rare earth minerals. Can you give us a sense of what the dynamics are in terms of the financials here?
Sure. So, this is an economic partnership. So we are going to accelerate the Ukraine economy. And as the president says, as I always say, economic security is national security. National security is economic security. So a strong Ukraine post this conflict, will help the Ukrainians maintain their national security. In terms of the deal, Maria, this is a total economic partnership. This isn't just rare earths. It's infrastructure, it's energy. So there's the opportunity here for both sides to really win. And again, what this isn't, it isn't one of these rapacious Chinese deals where the more powerful side goes in, says, here, sign away your national patrimony. The American people don't make any money if the Ukrainians don't prosper. So now we are fully aligned in terms of economics. And again, I think this is a strong signal to the Russian leadership, and it gives President Trump the ability to now negotiate with Russia on even a stronger basis, as opposed to the daylight that had been previously created between the U.S. and Ukraine.
Okay, I'm going to come back to this because you just mentioned China, and I want to ask you about China because I understand that with regard to these trade deals that you all are working on, you've been focused on the China end of it, and some of your colleagues are looking at other countries. Secretary, what exactly do you and President Trump want to see from China in terms of getting...
I'm curious about this because I feel like I still don't know exactly what they want.
These tariffs down. The president put in this 145% tariff. China comes back with a retaliation of 125%. What do you want China to do?
Well, I think this is going to be a multi-step process, Maria. I think first there will need to be a de-escalation on these very large tariffs. 145 and 125 are not sustainable on the Chinese side. We saw some very poor GDP numbers out of them. Out of China yesterday. We're now seeing very large estimates of job growth loss from 5 to 10 million jobs. So the Chinese economy is slowing down substantially here. So what we will first want to see is a de-escalation. We will likely revisit the purchase agreements that were put together in the first China trade agreement in January of 2020 to make sure that the Chinese are honoring those agreements. And then we are going to push for fair trade with China. They are the most imbalanced economy in the history of the world, and they need to rebalance. Now, Maria, the big deal that could be done here is President Trump is oriented the U.S. toward a manufacturing economy, taking us back to the strength that's been sapped over the past several decades. Everyone knows that China needs to rebalance towards more consumption. So if we could rebalance together, then that would be the big deal. But in the meantime, we're going to bring down the unfair trade barriers and hold them to the agreements that they previously signed.
Okay, so they have to.
Okay. So, I think that's a little bit of the lag. I think you saw in the video, not the audio. That's my internet because I'm getting the Wi-Fi signal there. That's not. Oh, you're seeing it right now. Yeah. Okay. Give it a second. That's not the Mac. That's the internet being a little weird. In terms of what he just said, again, I'm confused. What do they want from China? Right? Like, what do they want from China? He said we want more free, fair, or we want more reciprocal fair trade. Again, it's very vague, and I don't think we have an understanding of what that means. And I think it's because they don't necessarily know exactly what they want. Obviously, they wouldn't say literally exactly what they want, but something more specific other than they've been taking advantage of us when they've been buying our stocks and our bonds, which is good, right? Like how do you make sense of that part of the equation? I think is the part that I'm still confused about. Why am I still pixelated? Why am I still pixelated? At least the audio is not too bad. The audio is good. That's weird. That's Wi-Fi. That's not the Mac. That is Wi-Fi. Dave Ray says you can't render that much gay, dude. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. This is when it needs a minute. There's like no tabs open either. This is when it just it's being moody right here, dude. I know everyone says Ethernet, but it's not like the Wi-Fi is bad and the Ethernet, the way the house, at the new, by the way, guys, freaking, dude, they said, so they reached out to me about the apartment and they said, can you come at 12 o'clock? And I said, I can't, but I can come at 1 o'clock. And The reason I bring this up is because at the new studio, I'm going to make sure we have Ethernet so that we don't have this issue when it comes to Wi-Fi. In this house, it's a little bit difficult doing Ethernet, especially with the service providers here. But Trump is not speaking. No, Trump is not speaking. Hopefully, dude. I've been looking for an apartment for so long. They said they have a 2-bedroom available. It's in the right price range. So now is a question of if they have the view I want. I asked them, hey, does it have a nice view? She says it has a very nice view. I'm like, all right, I got to come see it now. Let's see if we can get it done. But yeah, hopefully there we have more Ethernet. Dude, why is it so blurry? Oh my gosh. I want to watch Karp to end out the show today. I want to watch Karp. We need to be able to watch Karp, but we need this blurriness to stop. Why is it being so dumb? It's not the Mac, it's the Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is being stupid. You know, if I change to my hotspot, I wonder if that changes it. I think that would be a bit aggressive though. Let's see. All right, it's gonna take a second. Let me see. If I change to my hotspot, let's see what happens. Let's see where it goes. All right, it'll pause for like 20 seconds. Good. All right, hotspot. Does hotspot suck or no? Does hotspot suck or no? Oh, hotspots. I think it's going to be better. I think, oh, wow. Dude, the fact that the hotspot is better than the actual, no, it should be clearing up. It should be getting perfect in a second. That's wild that the hotspot is better than the house Wi-Fi. Marie says we don't need to see you that clearly. It's not full 1080, but it's way better, right? That's crazy. That's wild. That's wild. Dude, all right. There you go. We're going to... All right, I'll switch off the hotspot in a bit if it gets... That, it's like perfect now. It's 4K. Go back to blur mode. We can see your pimples. Oh, my gosh. That's wild, right? That's wild. Yeah, the new apartment, we're going to try to get... Dude, we're going to try to make the studio setup, like, perfect. Like, I want multiple screens. I want multiple camera angles. I want to be able to press one. You know, one thing about Meet Kevin, if you've ever seen Meet Kevin's freaking studio setup, dude, that man, I mean, I think he spent like, I don't know, 20, 30 grand on his setup, but he has customized it to such an extent. Like, he is one button away from anything that he needs. That's the type of studio that I want to get at the new place. So hopefully in August. Hopefully in August, we get to figure that out. NVIDIA, 114.42, baby. 114.42. We're still going to have the bricks. Don't worry. They're definitely going to be real in the new place. But we're going to figure it out. I don't have, dude, I have Optimum. I don't have Verizon. If Verizon's actually not horrible, but Optimum in this area in New Jersey sucks. That's why the Wi-Fi constantly is stupid. Chad says that's what to get when you rug pull. Oh my gosh. Okay, finally, this video is ready to post. Here we go. All right, so I just posted a video on Twitter, on X, of the conversation Chad and I had. So there it is right there. Also, Bloomberg just put out an article on Palantir that I have not read yet, but I'm going to read it soon, and then I'll talk about it. This is the video. For anyone who missed it, this is Chad and I. He came on the live stream last week, and we talked about vibe coding in AIP. So some of you guys were on the market close. You saw it. If you were not on the market close, you can go to Twitter, and you can watch the video right here. It was really cool explaining how Palantir is incorporating some new stuff. The new article that came out today, the headline on this article from Bloomberg is Palantir's intelligence gathering truck rated a winner by Army. So it's on Titan, and essentially, again, I haven't read the article, but this is what Kris was saying as well. There's good headlines every day coming out for Palantir, and the market is recognizing it as a not only commercial play, but as a big defense play in AI. So this article, I'll talk a little bit more on X when I get to read it, but there's just more and more momentum. And I think that's why the market is giving Palantir this level of excitement. Robinhood trying to go red or green on the day, but went back red below 49, 48.95 right there. Palantir 118.33, slightly red. Tesla 287. And then NVIDIA 114, getting some momentum off the UAE news that we have. Do we have bots in the chat? Dude. The bots on X are also, look, let me show you right now. It's probably there. So I just posted that Chad video, right? Let's refresh it. There's probably going to be some bot comments. Yeah, dude, look at this. Is insane, bro. You guys see this? Look at this random bot right here. A stockbroker with 20 years of experience. His account is Ahmed Yusuf. He shares 10 to 20 stocks with high probability of rising and effective operation techniques. With his help, I made a lot of money in the past month and I bought a dream car. Dude, Elon needs to do something about this. This is stupid now. This is absolutely ridiculous. Like, this is getting to the point where it's insane. So we need to stop this. We need to stop this. All right. So we're going to end out the stream with Karp. I said we were going to watch it yesterday. It's a important video. So I'm going to be loading that up right now. And we'll take a look at what he had to say. I think it's like 20 minutes. So I think that's pretty much the end of the market open. If you want to leave right here, you can leave. If you want to look at comments from May High in the chat, who has a 2 million portfolio that is doubling down on XA149Z, then you can stay to read those comments. It's so bad, dude. It's hold on. I want my dream car. But if not, we're going to listen to Karp right here and hear what he had to say in one of his first interviews in a while. And one of the first interviews before earnings as we get into earnings next week. So let me pull this up right here. I think it's about 20 minutes. Again, there was a protester who interrupted in the middle. It like got spicy. I think Karp handled it with a lot of grace, but it was one of those things that was pretty wild to see. And we're going to watch it right here. Also, Sean was on Bloomberg yesterday. He was asked about the Golden Dome contract. He said no comment. So I don't know. Maybe we're going to get some updates on Golden Dome as well. Okay, where is this part of the clip? Let me pull it up right here. Jensen was at the same conference as well. Oh, I was looking at the wrong one. Okay, here it is. 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 All right. Let me pull this up right here. Okay, cool. Ready. All right, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. With the help of Amit, I successfully invested $50K in Hood and liquidated my balls. Contact Amit today. Oh my gosh. All right, one last quick look at the markets, and then we'll get into Karp. Yeah, it's relatively flat across the board. You got NVIDIA that's moving. You got the S&P that's okay, but everything else not really changed. S&P still up 1.4%, which is not too bad here as well. All right, here is Karp yesterday at the Hill and Valley Summit, and then we'll analyze it after he's done.
To lead that legend, Bergam, who just fight, you get your ass kicked.
Alex, it's great to see you since last year's Hill and Valley Forum. Since then, you published a book, and I'm sure everyone in this room wants to know, how has the reception of Western values, the concept of Western values that you wrote about in your book, evolved since last year's Hill and Valley, but also since the release of your book?
Well, first of all, congratulations on many accomplishments. And when you first started this forum, it was like in a small room that you could fit 5 people in, and now you have everyone who should be here, and as far as I can tell, everyone in DC talking about it. And yeah, so I'm delighted to be here, and we've known each other for a long time. And so first of all, I wrote this book, which The Technological Republic. The biggest surprise, honestly, is that anyone read it. And then it was a #1 bestseller. And the basic way the book market works in this country is you write. It's like a little bit like yoga versus Taekwondo. It's like in yoga, it doesn't really work, but you feel good about feeling good. And You don't really know what you learned, and you go once in a while, and somebody famous said do it, and that's how you sell one kind of book. And the other book is like Taekwondo. You get lots of belts, and it doesn't really work. And if you get in a real fight, you get your ass kicked. And that's how you sell a book. And we had neither, and it's a real book. And there's like it, and it's not, by the way, like by Palantir, although obviously that's the logical conclusion of everything. And then to top everything else off, it's kind of intellectually erudite. And the central thesis is the obvious truth that Western society, defined by meritocracy, rule of law, and honestly, mostly by competence, is superior, and that very few societies are willing to have a plan of any kind where they could be around in like 100, let alone 1,000 years. And then there's a lot of discussion of how you could organize something so it's actually highly competent, so meritocracy, and then kind of unique structures of what we do, at least at Palantir, which is low hierarchy, low title, high competence, some stuff actually stolen from the SAS and from German military Auftrag. So you get a mission, and then you have a lot of authority there, and considering a lot of the world is kind of powered by Palantir-shaped things and ex-Palantirians. To your question on the reception, I think it's been, the Valley was a place that, went through a lot of phases. The beginning phase of the Valley was Silicon Valley post and during World War II, where the Valley built products that were useful, raised the standard of living, and was the center of cohesion in America and the Western world. And then at some point, there was the whole consumer internet where people figured out that a few people get wealthy, and if you said platitudes that were obviously stupid, you could. Oh. Yeah. And well, do you want to hear my answer? Okay. So I think the primary cause of death to Palestinians. Okay. Do you want to hear the answer, or do you want to yell? Well, you don't want to hear an answer? Obviously. So the primary source of death in Palestine is the fact that Hamas has realized that there are millions and millions of useful idiots that will.
What she said right there is, don't use that excuse. That's why you don't get a platform to speak.
Can we get security up there?
Okay. One of the most. Okay. Mostly terrorists. That's true.
No, it's not. If you say mostly, so it's okay to kill.
Okay. Look, if your argument was so strong, wouldn't you let me talk? It's so strong. It's so strong. It's so strong. Your argument is okay. That's. Thank you for. If your argument was so strong, you'd let me talk. If your argument was...
Okay, so I'm going to intervene here and give my thoughts on this, and then we'll let it keep going. So here's my thing. I am not even going to think of getting into the debate between Israel and Palestine. And people can have all their own opinions. This is a free country. You have your own ideas and thoughts. I'm sure there's a diversity of viewpoints. That doesn't matter. What matters here is that if she's yelling in a public forum and causing a lot of chaos in terms of explaining what, her thoughts and opinions around what is happening in Palestine, Karp's argument is very simple. Can I answer your question? I mean, there's a lot of CEOs I've seen before, like, get security, get him out of here, blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right, I'm not responding to that. But like Karp saying, oh, cool, let's engage. Here's my answer. And so my issue here has nothing to do with the substance of the debate. This is America. This is where we debate stuff. Protest is what creates the foundation of democracy. But her specific sentence of you don't get a platform to speak is part of the reason that we're having all of this extremist ideology across every spectrum politically, because people don't want to talk to each other. And so the inability to hear the other side, and what Karp says right there, I think is just, I mean, it's just a fact. If your argument is so good and you believe in it so deeply, and Karp has said this many times before, wouldn't you want to hear the other side? Karp is like a progressive socialist, and Peter Thiel is a right-wing libertarian. They somehow built Palantir together. Why? Because they can talk to each other. And those sort of internal contradictions between their political aspirations actually allowed them to build what Palantir is today. So I think the broader argument here is if you're going to interrupt someone at a public forum and he's willing to engage, you got to let them actually explain their side of the argument as well.
By the way, just as an ipso facto thing in my book, if you have an argument, thank you,
ma'am. I think we've heard you. I think we've heard you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you came to the wrong event.
Okay, it's well, no, yeah. How about like, okay, if anything,
okay, have a great day.
One of the most important things, first of all, I really support free speech. So the part where you get up and say what you think, I'm 100% on your side. Like, if you want to come in here and accuse us of doing bad things, regurgitate where I'm a sick, bad person who's doing it for power and I'm enjoying watching people suffer. Okay, great. I 100% support her right to say that. But the thing on our side that we have to fight for is we have to fight for a right to discuss and say our side of this or my side of this. And like one of the most important things about the book, which you may not want to read, is you don't need to read, is if your argument is that strong, why will you not let the other side talk? And there, it's obvious.
This is a hell of an argument, and it is applicable to everyone in the modern time that we are living in. We are all going to have political disagreements across the board. If you cannot, and she explicitly said, you don't deserve a platform to speak. If you cannot hear the other side, there is no chance for discourse or a dialogue, which means what does the inevitability become in terms of discourse? Violence. When you stop people from talking, or worse, don't want to hear them talk, you end up killing them. And so from that perspective, I think the broader point Karp is trying to make has nothing really to do with the political issue she has, but rather has something to do with the fact that we need to be able to listen to each other. And if your argument is that strong, you should want to hear the other person's side, because the other person's side should be weaker than your side. But if you don't listen to them, you don't know what their side of the argument actually is.
Obviously, if the argument was as simple, and by the way, the pain of Palestinians is something that everybody, and anyone who dies in war, obviously people care about, I care about that. The obvious solution to war is to have the West strongest, precise, deadly weapons possible so that we can minimize unnecessary innocent deaths. And by the way, the primary way you minimize these deaths is you're so strong no one attacks you. And that's how you actually do it. Now, there are many sides to this debate, but one of the things that's really frustrating in the West, honestly, is I kind of call it, I spent a lot of my life in Germany. I'm kind of pro-German culture, especially where it actually works, which you could argue in many ways it's not. But it's like what I would call probably incorrectly, the greenification of our society, which is, we kind of all support something like climate. I think most people support regulated immigration. You have 20% of your society in Germany who are just radical to the point where the ideas make no sense, but they 100% believe, and then they end up controlling the policies of the whole society. And the responsibility we have who want pragmatic, real world solutions, like, of course, wars lead to innocent deaths. What do you do to minimize the death? Why did October 7th also include how were there security lapses? These are really important questions. Could it be done better? How would you do it better? What is America's role? Who do we sell to? Under what conditions? who controls the technology? Does America control the products we produce? At what point, if we're going to have generalized deadly AI, does the government have a responsibility to control who owns it, who runs it, what is it used for? Is there a sense in which you have to be politically and culturally aligned? Can you have a discursive discussion? These are all completely legitimate topics. But if we who disagree with being shouted at do not stand up and say, you know, fuck it, we got to fight back, at least talk about and force discursive discussion, they will win. And by the way, it's not that there's not anything legitimate in what they're saying. It's like they take it to an extreme where it's obviously absurd. And by the way, and where it's very much linked to, you know, what happened in the Valley, I believe she believes I'm evil. I believe she's an unwitting product of an evil force, Hamas. That she unwittingly is part of their strategy, that she is a product. And the most important thing, arguably, in the book or what Palantir or what you could learn is do not become a product of an ideology that sounds sensible. Because the minute you become a product of that ideology, you will be weaponized. And like the consumer internet version is we become more divided and less smart and less happy. The political version of it is you won't let anyone provide a different opinion because, of course, that person has to be evil. And the opinion that is actually probably less productized is more nuanced. And then, quite frankly, because you also probably have to make implicitly adopt an ethical hierarchy. So the hierarchy of my book and our company is the West is superior. It's simply superior because we can have this discussion. She can yell, I can respond, and we have to fight.
What Karp means by that is only in the West can you shout out like that when someone's talking. You try going to other parts of the world and say something when you're not supposed to say something, you're not going to be around for a long time. That is the implicit argument around why the West is superior. There's a lot of nuances to that argument, but that core fundamental premise is in the West, we believe in individual sovereignty and for that lady to have the ability to say what she says to Karp, which is why he's willing to engage, which is more than what most CEOs would do. In other parts of the world, try doing that in China. You're not going to be around for a while. You will be dead. Try doing that in North Korea. You're gone. And I think that is why Karp is so hellbent on this idea of getting people to realize the West matters. And as a company, Palantir should represent and accelerate and accentuate Western values in and of itself.
To make sure that breaks down. And then the other part of that I actually think is, and the thing that scares people about AI is scary, which is that it can be abused. It will give great powers, much more power than they otherwise would have without it. And it will lead to a hierarchical disparity, which will lead to how the world is governed, which is why we have to win this in America. Because if, in fact, another great power gets this technology and has the ability to more or less precisely target, more efficiently target, more accurately use actual devices that currently work, which is like hardware, software, hybrid devices, they will define the world order. And that world order is going to look like the person doesn't get to speak or they only get to speak. And that's what I do not want. And that actually is what we have to fight for.
And Alex, if I could just add something, in cases like this, in the freedom of this country, you're attacking the U.S. government. People vote with their feet. People vote with their feet. In the freedom of this country, these protesters are using our democracy to attack our system of government, and we support their freedom of expression. But it's important to remember that the freedoms they enjoy here, they would never be able to cause this circus in Gaza. And so it's important to keep that in mind. So shifting gears a little bit.
I haven't had this much fun in a long time. Maybe I should come back tomorrow. This is like I'm actually a reformed academic, and I spent most of my life there are many Palantirians here actively hiding my dyslexia. It's probably the only thing I've ever hidden. Like I probably should have hidden more of my personal life, or definitely should have hidden my political views. I should have, I got lots of people to quit Palantir. I didn't want to quit by telling them things that were seen insane or offending them, which I apologize for sometimes. The dinner table basically was, obviously it wasn't just shouting, but like discursive. And there usually was an aunt or an uncle who was occasionally over who would pull something like this, but it was usually from the far left, just like, but the means of production are so stacked against the working class. How can you have a view? So it's somewhat cathartic.
So in this room, we have a lot of builders who want to build great products and who want to build great companies. Obviously, Palantir is now, I lose track of the market cap, $220 billion market cap, depending on the day of the week. What are some of the organizational lessons that you think have made Palantir a great company? And what advice do you have for policymakers to make our government culture more efficient and effective?
By the way, I believe we're in our infancy, but I think every real company that succeeds at a scale, like basically I think there's a binary thing in the history of companies, like can you get to $1 billion in revenue or not? And it's an important metric because parts of a system can go well and can get you pretty far, but if you can cross the $1 billion mark, then something has really gone well, and it's not just something falling together. And I would to get to that kind of mark, you have to have a founding team where people are doing something where they have a primordial level talent, inborn talent, that they're willing to dedicate every ounce of their life to, probably for 5 years or more. And I believe to do that, you have to have a belief structure on top of it. Like the pain of dealing with highly talented people, or the most talented person you've ever met, is going to be very, very high. And I don't know how you do that without some belief. Now, the belief doesn't have to be, I would prefer it to be Western values and the superior of the West defined like I see it, but it doesn't have to be that. But I would say, and as absurd as that kind of sounds, look at the counterfactual. Almost every great company in the world is built by builders in this country. And why is that? Again, take the German example. Germany has people that are equally talented, equally smart, they believe much smarter, and which they tell me whenever I go there. And yet in this country, and why is that? And one of the reasons is we have, our version of religious freedom is you get to define your own church, synagogue, mosque, or cult. And then you get to set largely the rules of your own religious community. And that seems like a banality, but it really only exists at scale in this country. So as you know, in Europe, if you move to Germany or Switzerland, and you sign up, they'll ask you, are you Jewish, Christian, or Muslim? And then it's the community standards defines whether you're a member. And in this country, you get to decide, and you get to set. And we have a belief culture, and if you combine that with enough technical people and pragmatism, you can have a great company. But the part that people leave off the balance sheet when they talk about builder is the belief side. And I think there was like a flash in the pan where there were companies where the people were just completely narcissistic. And there is a narcissism to believing you're going to do something, a productive narcissism, I'd like to believe, of believing you're going to do something really big and great, even though the odds are stacked against you. That's necessary. But believing there is something larger than the numbers, that is more important than the numbers, that gets you through the pain of failure, and in my view, the greatest task ever, which is working with someone who annoys the crap out of you every day for 5 years, and deep into your pores annoys you. It requires belief, and then I think especially now, you really obviously have to have something that is actually differentiated and actually deep and hard to do. Now, deep and hard, it can be a combination of tech depth and an ability to sell into a difficult market, like breaking into the US government to get them to buy something that they couldn't measure, couldn't see, couldn't feel, couldn't test software was really hard. And, you know, so, and I think it's gotten easier, but it's still hard. And so you're going to have to, businesses have basically two components, deep tech and some way of getting someone to buy it. And you need to do both. And that's why it's very hard, because most people who can do the deep tech probably are building the wrong product and or can't get the product out of the first olive or the second or the 10th or the billionth out of the jar. And so you have to think very seriously about both of those in what you're building and how you go to market. And then you want to be in America, honestly. There are people from all over the world here, and I want the West to succeed. If you want to know how good you are at tech, you do it here. It's not just this, people tell you it's a scale thing, a capital thing. No, it's also, this is more of a métier or an art form than a science, and all the artists are here. So you got to come here. If your government doesn't want you to be here, come here. This is where the action is. You can then build it and then go abroad or build it, co-build it. But it's like, if you want to be in the NFL, you come to America. You want to be in tech, you come to America. You want to do lots of, like, I wanted to be a philosopher until I realized it was ridiculous. There are lots of places you could go to be a ridiculous philosopher. Germany is a great place for that. And you'll have a great social life because people appreciate that. But, you know, so this is where the action is. And it's really important not to ignore these banalities because they will determine your fate. And then, you know, it's really important to have dialogue. You should have a low tolerance for stupidity. I mean, in public, when you're talking to people, you really want to steel man it's a contradiction, but you want to steel man everything you encounter. How could this stupid thing actually be true is a really important question. But if the stupid thing is actually stupid, no matter, and if it comes from a world-class wealthy person, it's still stupid. It's stupid, but again, you can't just write off things as like, this is obvious. You have to spend a lot of time figuring out, is something that otherwise looks dumb actually smart? And that's hard to figure out. But that it's not a prestige thing. A lot of smart people and accomplished people say things that used to be true. And like, one of the reasons we succeeded at Palantir, like, we sued the government. I've told the story 1,000 times, so some of you have heard it, but I sat here and the most famous people sat there and they said, if you sue the government, everyone will know you're an asshole. And I'm like, God, I don't really view myself as an asshole. I didn't realize coming out as being, and so, and we sued the government, and they were right that it was really stupid. And I was right that if we didn't change the way procurement was done, this nation would not be strong and good, and we would fail. And there are a lot of people here in this room who, have great companies because of their innovation and their hard work and their dedication to specialized talent. And also because we sued the US government, and now there's something like meritocracy. So you're still shooting uphill, but shooting uphill and shooting like to Mount Everest while they're dropping grenades on you is a different story.
So Alex, in closing, these two protesters was actually my secret way of creating the perfect segue to talk about your assessment of America's policy in Israel post October 7th. And I want to ask you, where does Palantir, I mean, as a philosopher, you opine a lot on cultural issues, and Palantir took out a full page ad in the New York Times post October 7th to say Palantir stands with Israel. Where do you source that moral conviction? And can you explain to us a little bit why that's so important to you?
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, moral conviction is just conviction. And for better or worse, we have it at Palantir, and lots of people don't agree with our convictions. I do think having moral conviction is one of the main it's too simple to say you have clarity of conviction and therefore you're going to succeed. That's not true. But it is, I do think the inverse is also much harder than people think. Without any kind of conviction, I think it'd be very hard to stick. Well, we had 17 years of where everyone was short Palantir. I mean, everyone. I mean, so, and we stuck with it, and and then also the kind of highly meritocratic environment comes with pain, and so you need conviction to get that to work. And flat hierarchy means everyone's telling you you're stupid all the time, so you need conviction to get that to work. But on like the general, the West has to survive. I think we have a way of ordering our life that is very special and is very underappreciated, often by our elite institutions, especially. And if we lose it, we will lose everything that makes everything work in this world. I don't know exactly where the source of my personal convictions come, although it's more just a belief structure. But I'm very proud we have them. And I think as importantly, every time we reach a new milestone, so $1 billion, in each segment of our company, or one of the more important attributes of it is you win arguments in this country and industry by having conviction that leads to big tendies, which is a retail investment way of saying money. And so if you want to convince the world that you're right about something and you're a builder here, one of the best ways to do it is to build a great business, because everyone will listen. The stuff I'm saying now is arguably the same stuff I've been saying for many, many years. And it wasn't that worth it. It's like, so I think you win arguments, and you win arguments by basically building a castle of success and letting people look at it. And then they basically assume that the way you see the world. And by the way, again, this is kind of in the book, but one of the most important interactions I had was a very poor graduate student. It was so poor, I had this family in this rural village that gave me a coat. And in Frankfurt, there were, of course, in Frankfurt, no one knew a fascist during the war. Everyone was, and in this village, people were like, yeah, I was basically a Nazi, and I talked to them. And one of the most important things I learned from them was, it was the fact that America and American ways of thinking made them healthier and wealthier and happier that changed how they saw the world much more than anything else. And if you want to change how people organize, if you want to create a discursive environment, if you want to widen the aperture of access to things that work, educational reform, including AI, meritocratic institutions across our society, including universities, you've got to show it in action. And then people will judge you by the fruits you bear. And that will have an enormous impact. And so, one of the reasons I think a lot of us still fight, both current Palantirians, ex-Palantirians, customers, partners, investors, fight for us or defend us, or at least tolerate things they may not exactly agree with, is because they know we're fighting to get something to actually work. And that is actually how you shift the dialogue. And if you want to steal man, why are they yelling and not talking? What are they building? One of my favorite things, I have most of my family is left of center. And one of my favorite things is, and I view myself as a classic liberal. My first question is always, show me an institution you respect that's actually working. And that shuts things up very quickly. And I say, I'll give you an institution you don't agree with a lot, my company, and it's actually working. Why don't you try to figure out how you can take some meritocracy and put it into your worldview, because that might work. How about a little bit of discourse? That might work. How about working with people who disagree with you? That might work. How about taking something and building something where the inputs are much less than the output, which is the primary determinative of something, if something is working. And then what you will get is you essentially split the ocean. One side will yell at you and tell you, you can't say this, you can't think this, you can't do this. And the other side, people who equally do not agree with me, were like, yeah, that's a real challenge. And it's those people that don't agree with you, that are open for a system that actually works, like a system that any system in a differentiated, complicated society below which we cannot regress without destroying all of our lives is going to have certain attributes. Talented people are going to succeed more. Hardworking people are going to see more. There's going to be wealth inequality. How do you solve that? You're going to have to deal with ways to test for merit. There may not be the simple ways we know. And you're going to have to produce something where the inputs are less than the outputs. And we have to get, and the way you convince people of this is you do something that's successful and you challenge them to have their worldview produce something that is better. And usually what you'll find is half the people will say, yeah, well, you're kind of some form of bigot or you're evil. And the other half will be like, yeah, okay. And then that's how you organize things, and that's how you actually make a lot of change.
It's Karp, everyone, the CEO of Palantir.
All right, there we go. I think he handled it with a lot of grace. I think whatever side of the aisle you are on when it comes to the issue, being able to have the discussion is the most important thing. Real quick, as we end out the show right here, take a look at this. This is a company called Procure.fyi. They track government revenue or government contracts. They just put this out. Palantir had one of its strongest Q1 performances from the federal government in recent years, if not its largest ever, over 120 million so far. Note that Q1 is typically a quieter period for federal contracting compared to Q3, which marks the end of the fiscal year. This might be the reason the stock has been pumping for the past couple weeks. There might be people that realize that they're going to freaking demolish the government revenue growth. And as a result of that, that could create, momentum for the overall narrative on just not the commercial side, but the also government side of the business. So that's what you got right now. By the way, Legend, it's hilarious. It's not working for a bunch of people. It's a little bit better for me now, but it wasn't working either. So yeah, after Robinhood earnings, Legend not working is hilarious, but hopefully they fix that soon. All right, I have to leave. I just got a text message from the apartment people to come at 1 p.m. I know Trump is live. I have to go progress my life and figure out how to get this damn apartment. So I'm not going to be watching Trump here. Don't know what he's saying, but I'm sure he'll be saying something that's going to affect the markets when we talk about tariffs. What is he was live for the prayer. Why is he live again on Fox News? That is so weird. I really got to go, guys. I got to drive 40 minutes to go see this apartment. So I'd rather just leave right now. But yeah, I'll summarize whatever Trump says, and we'll try to figure out what he says. I mean, look, the S&P is up by about 1.5%. I don't think he's going to say anything that's that crazy, but if he says something to change it, then we will see stocks potentially go red. S&P, now it's up 1.15. It was up 1.5, still up 1% of the day. Not too bad for the S&P. All right, cool. I'm out. Honestly, please wish me the best. I've been desperately trying to find an apartment. The lady says there's a good view. One of my biggest things is I want the skyline view. Selfishly, I'm not a materialistic guy, but I really want a New York City skyline view. I haven't been able to find it. She said there's a good view, but they say whatever they want to say just to get you to buy it. So when I get there, I am hoping to walk in and actually see a good view. I will let you guys know on the market close if this is the place, but hopefully we can get this done. Word of the day is anadem.
Anadem.
A wreath or garland of flowers worn on the head. Instead of a veil, the bride decided to wear an anadem of jasmine and baby's breath. The class made anadems to wear during the traditional Greek courses. Okay, cool. Anadem. That's fine. Word of the day needs to be apartment, because we got to find this apartment. We got to get it done. So, all right, I'm out of here. Thank you, everybody. I'll be back at 3:45. We got Apple and Amazon on deck. Apple and Amazon on deck, and I'm getting pixelated right now. So now it's time to go. All right. Love everybody. See you guys. Apple and Amazon at 3:45. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.